EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday morning edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. J-Mac, it's OTA day, at least OTA day where you can report to OTAs, which means we will see a little bit more from that OTA. The team obviously reported yesterday. How you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Yeah, just finding out it's Wednesday, so that's good. I thought it was Tuesday. Yeah, I'm just like an NFL team. You screw up a day on me, and I just pretend it doesn't exist, and we're in a normal week. So, but it is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Eagles' first open OTA. They had an OTA, on-field open OTA that was not open on Tuesday to the media. So that's the time of the year you don't get to see everything. So Nick Sirianni's talking this morning before practice, assorted players, including Jalen Hurts after practice. Practice is about 12:20. Hopefully it stops raining by that point, which I think it's supposed to. And there you have it. We're off and running with Sean Mannion's offense. And we'll see how quickly the raving starts. I think it'll start pretty quickly.
Yeah, John, what's the schedule look like today? I know you put it out there. I think you said you're going to speak with Jalen Hurts at some point today. What does that look like for what can Eagles fans expect to see on the timeline today?
Yeah, Nick before, just as I said, Jalen after, and assorted players. We don't know the other players. Normally it's going to be Lane if he's there. It's going to be that'd be an A.J. Brown spot, but he's not going to be there. So
maybe Smitty?
Devontae Smith potentially stepping up. We talked about defense yesterday. Could be Jordan Davis, could be Zach Vaughn. One of those could be Cooper, one of those types of guys. So, we'll get off and rolling for the 2026 season. But obviously, Jalen Hurts is the most notable because a lot has gone on. Everything from the reports that, he's uncomfortable with certain things, the change in the offense again. He's working out with Scott Leffler, the contract, a lot of stuff, which I'm 99% sure he'll not address the contract, but it'll probably get asked at some point. A lot of stuff with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and obviously the Leffler stuff, which you mentioned, Leffler, the new offense, it's going to be interesting to hear. I don't know how much he'll give you, but, I do think it's fair to ask, obviously, those questions about the Leffler and the proxy war that you've called here on JAKIB.
Could be nothing. Could be everything. Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know if I'll tell you it's anything, but I think it's something.
It's weird. I know that. You don't see it. So at the bare minimum, it's weird if you have a quarterback who wants to continue to work with the guy they essentially fired at the position. It's not normal way of doing business, I'll say that.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening with all of that. Obviously, the new coaching staff is in. John, the other thing is when Manning spoke last week, didn't hear much about Parks, Frazier, or who's the other guy that they brought in? I guess
Josh Grizzard.
Yeah,
you got
Josh
Jared
Grizzard.
Johnson. You got 97 ex-quarterbacks. So
yeah, and we didn't hear much about Josh and Parks Frazier last week. I don't know if
well, you got a little bit of Vic Fangio with the titles letting you in on the secret that if you watch the show you're already in on, but yeah, it's not that important. I mean, Josh Grizzard's not going to be a big part of what basically you got to worry about Sean Mannion and Parks Frazier. That's what you got to worry about when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Everybody else is supplementing support staff, things of that nature. But those are the two guys that are going to be working the closest with Jalen Hurts. And those are the two guys you should hold responsible, good or bad. Those are the guys who are going to be doing it.
Yep, no doubt about it. It's going to be interesting to see. John, with on-field OTAs, there's not much you do see today, right? There's not like pads or anything like that. It's just kind of the guys getting out there, getting their legs loose and running around a little bit, basically. What are you expecting to see from your trip down to NovaCare today?
Well, you get to see some 7-on-7s, which is heavily offensively tilted. So you expect the offense to look good. And if it doesn't, that's a concern. Some team stuff, you'll have 11-on-11. Offensive and defensive line are just out there basically to really just give you the perception of a real formation. Obviously, there'll be one-on-one stuff as well. So you get to feel this is the time of the year where athletes stand out. It's flag football basically. So, you want to see the receivers, you want to see the running backs in the passing game, you want to see the secondary guys, you want to see the linebackers in pass coverage, that kind of thing. That's what these camps are for. Really passing camps, glorified passing camps. If there's high school football fans out there and your kids play and all the off season, all it is 7-on-7 passing camps. That's right. What it is basically the NFL version. And when it comes to the offensive and defensive line, it's about the technique work and the one-on-one stuff, and that's a little bit different because you have Chris Cooper instead of Jeff Stoutland. So I'm sure there'll be quite a few eyes on Chris Cooper, and there has been. So but it's really tough. Anybody who starts to gauge, to be honest, offensive line playing with no pads. I mean, think about the silliness of that.
Right.
I wrote about Markel Besha. I looked at a player at each position. You have to pick somebody. So I picked Markel Bell. And I'm like, I just want to see how edge rushers sort of try to approach him because he's so big. He's so enormous. Like, you're not going to, you can run around him, but it will take you forever. So, do you try to get low? What do you try to do? So little things like that.
Probably line up wide and try and beat him to the edge, but we'll see what people do on that. John, you got to correct me here I don't know if I remember this incorrectly. Like you always say, sometimes it all runs together. Was 7-on-7s last year when you started to see that they were barely pushing the ball downfield at all offensively? Or was that only training camp? Do you remember you used to do your training camp reports and you'd be like, I don't really know, Zander. They're not really throwing the ball much outside of the flats and, some short stuff. And I'm like, okay. But it turned out to be that's kind of the way they were going to play offense. So I'm wondering if there actually is more we can learn from this period than anticipated.
Sometimes I think when if you go back to 2024 and Saquon, it was like, everybody was excited and all they did was basically use him as a decoy and run him outside the formation in the receiving game. And that turned out to be true for the most part. They don't use him that much in the passing game outside the occasional wheel route. So there are little things you can pick up. But yeah, that was camp. That was training camp. When it becomes very like we only get in one day this week, one day next week. Like there's not enough time to develop themes. They might be doing something. They definitely were doing something different as they install stuff yesterday versus today. So you can't really get a theme. So that became after you're there every day and it's just day after day after day. And then you can kind of pick up on those themes. So kind of tough this time of year because you're only in there once. They're going to have they have clusters of 3. So you only get to see 33% of it. You got to be careful when you're drawing conclusions from that. You're seeing a very incomplete picture. In training camp, they have to open up every single practice.
Right.
And you still don't get, there's so much you don't get to see. from meetings, and which are never been more important, certainly for this team, but around the league as a whole. And even developmental periods and little stuff they do after practice. So you never get a complete picture, but you get a much more complete picture in training camp than you do this time of year.
No doubt about it. John, the other big thing here that we're going to be looking for is this is presumably, John, the last week that A.J. Brown will be a Philadelphia Eagle. You remember Howie and Nick? Well, right now, A.J. Brown's an Eagle. Okay, well, this might be the very last week of him being on the Philadelphia Eagles, which means you're going to see a different looking receiver group, Johnny Mack, whenever you lose a player like that. I think that's something to keep an eye on, obviously, to see how this team plans on managing and working through and getting better through the loss of a player as good as A.J. Brown. That's obviously top of mind for everybody. I'm curious to see what that receiving group looks like out there during OTAs.
Yeah, I some business on air real quick. BLG is going to try to hop on at 9:20, so just to let you know. But
Nice.
I forgot it was Wednesday, so I didn't ask him. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like this team has been operating like AJ's not going to be here. So, I mean, I don't think it changes that much for them. For the outside world that hasn't believed it, maybe it changes a little bit.
Well, it certainly changes for them in terms of how they're going to play football.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they've been coming up with this plan for a long time, is what I'm trying to say. And whether what it looks like, it's it's going to be Dontavian Wicks and Mekhi Lemon stepping up. To me, the only question is, obviously, Wicks is going to play more outside, Lemon's going to play more inside, but I do think you have flexibility with Devontae and hopefully Lemon to play both, and even Wicks for that matter. To me, the question is, how quickly do you get to Devontae and Mekhi Lemon when there's only two receivers on the field? I think that will start with Wicks, Devontae and Wicks, because he's the veteran. He knows this offense in a lot of ways. He's the one guy, even though he's new here, he's not new to this offense or projected offense. So he should be ahead of everybody from that standpoint. Terminology, which we talked about yesterday, he should be ahead. So I do think you're going to hear a lot about Wicks early, and hopefully Lemon can pick up things quickly. That's the goal. And then, I think the less important thing that nobody cares about with receivers, nobody cares about special teams. Look, this, and you see it with the Rams, you see it with the 49ers, you see it with the Packers. Receivers got to block in this offense. And who's going to it's one of the reasons Lemon is here. He's physical. He's small, but he's physical. Devontae's small, but he's physical. Wicks is bigger and has a history with it. So, I mean, the receivers and the tight ends, but the receivers have to block in this. They have to block in every offense, but it's more important in this style of offense that they get going.
Yeah, well, we're going to see, Johnny Mack. I mean, I know you say the team has been preparing for life after AJ, but preparing for it is different than actually dealing with it. Because that's a good player, John, that they're going to lose, and I am curious to see what Mannion's goal is to try and we talk about.
Well, remember, he's never had him. So
yeah, but still, he's got to improve the Eagles' passing game, and you're asking him to do that while getting rid of the very best player that would have enabled.
Well, remember, they stunk, though. From his standpoint, if I'm Sean Mannion, this is how I approach it. I've never had him. It was so bad last year, it's got to be better. I'm playing with house money if I'm Sean Mannion.
All right, that's a fair way to look at it. But the expectations here were already set. Because
I mean, that's part of what he's going to have to deal with. But And sometimes the expectations are unrealistic. And if they expect to have a receiver better than an A.J. Brown, if that's the expectation, well, it's not going to work. You can't
No,
worry
but I
about
think
that.
they expect an improved passing game.
Well,
It's
that
not going to be that
is,
easy to do, losing a great player like AJ.
I think it's going to be pretty easy. And it has nothing to do with A.J. Brown.
Right, just because they were so bad, right?
Yeah. I think it's got to do with the quarterback accepting the offense. And if he does that, it's going to be better. How much
Fair enough.
better? I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's going to be
well,
better.
we'll see. We will see what ends up happening with this team. We got Mike Gill in the green room. We weren't sure if Mike would be clicking in because J Mac thought we were
I
on a
forgot it
Tuesday
was
morning.
Wednesday. Put this mic up. I forgot it was Wednesday, Mike.
Yeah, it's not Tuesday. It is Wednesday. We had no Monday show, obviously, because of the Memorial Day weekend. And now we have Mike Gill set to join us right here on Birds 365. He joins us right now. You can follow him at Mike Gill Show. Listen to his show at 97.3 ESPN. Down the shore, the #1 sports program in all of New Jersey, the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. What's going on, Mike? Good to see you this Wednesday morning, my friend.
Yeah, I didn't get the text. I wasn't sure yesterday.
Yeah, I told you. How about if that emphasizes I'm a football guy more than anything else? If you screw me up one day and I think it's freaking Tuesday.
Tell me, yesterday we do our football at 4 every day at 4 o'clock. With the guys from Inside the Birds. Monday, Jeff Mosher's on. Tuesday, Adam Kaplan's on. Well, yesterday, sitting in the green room on StreamYard was Jeff Mosher, and I'm promoting that Adam Kaplan's coming up next. And Mosher's texting me. I said, it's not Monday. Well, my producer, Josh, sent Mosher the link for the StreamYard because he also thought it was Monday. So
there you go.
We're all right there, man.
Yeah, got quite a bit of you guys. Mike, OTA's kicking off today, man. What are you expecting to see? And I will also remind you that this is most likely the last week that AJ Brown will be a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So no more of that coach speak or GM speak. Well,
I don't need you to remind me of that. Believe me.
I know.
Well, I think the first thing you're looking at is a couple of things. One, how much will the offense kind of like show itself, if at all? Or is this going to be just, shell 7-on-7 breeze bys where they're just flipping passes around? Or are you going to noticeably see some things a little bit different here? I can't imagine it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of revealing stuff here. I think more on the defensive side of the ball. John, I'm interested to get your take on what Fangio said about Cooper DeJean. A lot of people going crazy about the fact that he said he's going to be playing safety, but he's played a lot of safety in their base defenses in the past. They just don't play a lot of base defense. So he doesn't line up but are we going to see him? Are they going to play more base defense? Number one. And number two, do we anticipate that his snap count in the safety spot is going to rise significantly this season? Is that the vibe that we got? Because Fangio kind of just quickly threw that out there, and I don't know that it really registered in the moment because it was like, okay, he's done it a little bit before, but I think that's something that you can see where our players lining up is something to watch starting today.
Yeah, he's going to play safety and base. Now, he started last year's training camp. A lot of people forget as the safety in the base defense next to Reed Blankenship. It wasn't Drew Makuba early as a rookie, obviously. So it was Reed and Cooper, best friends together. And then it became because he can play anywhere and nobody sees the cornerback. The hope was that Keely Ringo would seize the cornerback job. That's how far back we're going. Didn't happen. Weren't confident enough in Adoree Jackson, and they know Cooper can do anything. So he ended up playing outside corner and base and then moving to slot. But this was the plan last year, the original plan. It's not going to increase his snaps. It's not going to increase the team snaps in the base defense. I mean, they generally play 10 to 15, depending on the game. And, sometimes if somebody's lining up with, like Chicago was beating them up, you might play more base in a game like that. And and that would elevate it for a game. But overall, it's not going to increase. Most teams still use 3 receivers most of the time. So it's not going to increase that from a team perspective. But so the only difference is they're more confident in their second corner, which is McMullen. So they think he can stay on the field, and they're not as confident with the safety. So they're going to move Cooper back to safety in the base. And
now,
he'll
if
move
there's
back
somebody at training camp or even starting today, see what I always say for the OTAs, people are like, it's OTAs, these are useless. They're just like glorified, like running around in shirts and helmets. But, for me, I look at it as coaches are always watching to try to find somebody. So if you are somebody who wasn't on the radar at all, and then you come in and make a little bit of an impression, the coach might say, you know what? I want to see what that guy looks like when we get to training camp. So it might not be a crazy standout thing, but maybe they'll be looking at guys a little closer. Is there someone that can play the slot that we like enough to look at a little bit more once training camp gets here so that we can maybe think about using Cooper in that safety role a little bit more? Like, do we think they would prefer that? Like that he would just play safety if they had a guy that could handle the slot and kind of they don't have to keep moving him back, or do they not mind that?
No, I don't think Vic minds it. Yeah, he said in the past, we'd have to find somebody who can play the slot. So they have Michael Carter, who's been, one of the highest paid slot corners in this league. So he's been.
And Michael Carter would be a better slot than a safety.
Well, he's got history as a slot,
right.
And they're trying to move him to safety, but he's done the slot. He hasn't really done the safety. I think it's more likely that they'll, keep it as is, and the fact simply because they don't have answers. They don't have answers in the slot, and they don't have answers at safety opposite Drew Makuba when he's healthy. By the way, you might start today, and Drew might not be ready to go coming off the fractured fibula. It might be Andre Sam back there. So if you're looking for people in Marcus Epps, so if you're looking for people, maybe I'm making too much of this, but I thought it was notable that Vic gave Kapina Gushikin a nickname already. Now, maybe that's because he can't pronounce his name and called him Goosh.
That sounds more of a I don't know how to
like
say
a big V. Yeah, like a big V, everybody. But he also got, that's only part of it. The second part is he got the most money of all the undrafted free agents. So there's a couple of Alabama guys who people are excited about. They got nothing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When he talked about safety, I don't think he brought up Wisniewski's name.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
Yeah.
He did not. So
I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, because in years past, Sirianni has gone out of his way to mention certain players, and they were like, oh, he went out of his way to mention that running back, and that guy never got a touch.
Well, people, people do, and I'm in that category as well. I'm just talking about it. Like Vic has to look down at the roster. He's like, who else do we have?
Yeah.
It's like, so
I don't know how to take that if I'm a player. Like, man, the coach doesn't even know my name.
Yeah. Well, Buddy Ryan didn't know anybody's name. It was all numbers with Buddy. So.
That's okay if he does that for everybody. But if you're the coach and you're out there and you're talking about Gooch and I got drafted and people have somewhat expectations for me and he gets a mention and I don't, where am I on the depth chart?
Well, I'm not gonna, because he was, he was talking about the main situation. So he was talking about Cooper playing there, and he was talking about, him playing in the base, and then he was talking about Epsy and the communication and his strengths, and he was talking about Michael Carter moving there. So those are the main guys. Are the main guys. And then you're looking down the depth chart, and then he, started to struggle a little bit, had to be reminded of Andre Sam. And then he came up with Goosh, and he even came up with J.T. Gray as more of a special teams player. But he did not mention off the cuff Cole Wisniewski. I don't think that's bad. I wouldn't go overboard. Other than the people who think
better than post Memorial Day reading into the coach not mentioning a guy's name as you enter
a 7th round pick, by the way. a seventh
first
round
OT.
pick.
No, well, and the other thing too, it would be the offense this year. Just right off the rip, are they going to have Jalen Hurts kind of mocking being under center more right off the get the footwork down and that kind of stuff? I guess that's something that.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I would think that's a big.
I don't understand how I'm like almost 50 years old and I see a couch and I like sidle up to it and put my hands up under as if I'm taking a snap still. How these quarterbacks don't like that's not
they
just
never do it, Mike. They literally never do it.
I know it's wild to think that like a whole generation of quarterbacks grew up not like going up under center and like simulating taking a snap. That to me is bonkers. So I guess watching to see if Jalen Hurts is primarily sitting there with his hands like this and some guy getting stuck on his knee all day, forcing a snap up to him. Is that going to be something that we see primarily? So that I would imagine, I say this about the Phillies all the time. It is crazy to me. Like they put a Mundo Sosa in left field, like out of the blue all of a sudden, which I said, at the end of last year, you send the guy to winter ball. You tell him to go play left field. Then when he gets to spring training, you play left field almost primarily so that we know we lack a right-handed bat and we want you to get more innings, learn how to play left field. Same with this situation where like every rep should be, hey, you got to take the snap and get your footwork down. We want you to start today drilling it into your head that this is going to be your role in the offense this year. I just can't understand how these teams do not have muscle memory way at the top of the list.
I'm gonna moneyball you, Mike. Right? Scott Hatteberg. He's got to play first base. He's never played first base. Well, teach him.
Yeah. Guess what?
That's the modern environment.
If you are a professional athlete, it's in you to be able to learn how to play left field. Now, the quarterback taking snaps under center, it is bizarre that you would not have done that throughout your expectancy. But I guess
it isn't the snap. The irony is Jalen is
or the footwork. The footwork coming out of the snap.
The footwork is the deal. The footwork is the big deal. Because the snap, he actually takes quite a few snaps under center compared to some quarterbacks because of the tush push. He does it all the time, or has done it quite a bit. The footwork coming out for a quarterback is, 3, 5, 7-step drops. I mean, it is so important from a chemistry and a tempo and a just. Bang, everything's designed off the timing of that. It's like 3-step drop, bang, balls out, 5-step, balls out, 7 balls out.
You know what that means, John, and guys, that's a major trust thing. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the receivers. You have to have ultimate trust that if I'm just going to throw a football based on the number count in my head of where my steps are, that's a trust thing, and we got to see if Jalen Hurts can get past that. But guess what?
Yeah, that's today. Really difficult because that doesn't exist in college football anymore. It's just a bunch of quarterbacks used to throwing the football to open receivers. You don't see those timing passes where the ball is out before the receiver even breaks, which used to be a common occurrence in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, for you to say, okay, here's the snap, 1, 2, 3, plant, throw, you have to trust that receiver is going to be where you think he's going to be.
Yeah, it's there's a lot on the receiver. Quarterbacks get blamed for throwing interceptions that are often not their fault, but because the receiver didn't do what he was supposed to do. But you see what kind of throw is that? When you hear that from a fan, it's usually the receiver.
Yeah.
It really is.
Who's he throwing that to? What are you doing? How did you not see that guy? Well, I thought my guy was going to be crossing his face.
Yeah. So it is. You can look bad as a quarterback if your receiver isn't doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that was before Nick got shut down. If you think about when Jalen Reagor was still here, and that Giants game where he had the big drops, he was really upset. He would get in his football discussions, former wide receiver, former receivers coach. It's like, guys aren't where they're supposed to be running routes. And he was really pissed off about it.
Nick Sirianni, by the way, seen multiple times down the Jersey Shore this weekend.
Is that right?
See, where was he?
I believe he's an Avaloner.
Avalon? Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, he was.
Avalon's nice.
He was shooting hoops over at the Avalon Rec Center.
All right. There we
playing
go.
a little looked like he was playing knockout with a kid.
He's a good basketball player.
Yeah,
very
there's a
good
video of him. Actually, my buddy is the guy who's the rec director down there, and he had the video of him, and it's just him and a kid, and it looks like he's playing knockout. I don't know if it was his son or not, but he looked a little younger than his son. I think his son, how old is his son now? Like in his 13, 14, 15, somewhere on there?
He's got 3 kids. I don't know.
Gotcha. So maybe it was one of his kids. He was also, I think,
I don't think they're that old, but I'm not sure. But
I feel like he was at the driving range. There's a place down here. I'm not familiar with it. In Cape May Courthouse. I'd never heard of the place before, but he was there. It's like a driving range, an arcade, a mini golf place. It's like a cards. It's a whole big complex. He was over there. He's down here frequently, but I think he's more of an Avalon guy.
There you go.
You're an Avalon guy. You got really big bucks.
Oh yeah.
In Avalon, they spend $5 million on a house and they knock it down the next week to rebuild their own. Avalon, that's different money over there.
Sea Isle, you're like, okay, he's got some money. Avalon, you got big time money.
Yeah, Stone Harbor, he's got big time money. So
that's what I mean. He's in Avalon. He's got big time money. Jason Kelsey, he's schlepping down in Sea Isle down there. He's over at.
He's just like, Kelsey likes the other parts of Sea Isle.
Kelsey, his house is very well known down there, but it's very modest. Good for Kelsey. He's got a very modest. Now, it is on the beach block in Sea Isle, so I imagine that's some prime real estate. But it's not some monstrosity that they tore down, to your point, Zander, and then built something crazy back up. It's just something that was there. It's on the beach.
Good for those guys. Like, I'd be the exact opposite because it gets so crowded. Like, I would want no part of that. Like, I'd be going, to, North Carolina, the Outer Banks. I'd be trying to get away from it. But good for those guys. They want to be part of the community.
Mike, how hard is it going to be for Sean Mannion to improve an offense that is losing the offense's best player?
I've been teetering back on this because one of my thoughts has been if you're going to trade A.J. Brown and you feel like this team has Super Bowl aspirations, don't you then, in fact, need to get something to help this team out? But at the same time, I've seen the success of, say, I look at Seattle, a team that won the Super Bowl last year. I don't know that Devontae Smith is Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he's somewhere in the stratosphere. And after Jackson Smith and Jigba, they don't really have a guy that's like, and they got that guy too. They just got guys who have roles. I mean, they made the trade for Shaheed. He's your burner. They really have Cooper Kupp, who's their possession guy. They don't have Smith and Brown. Here it's always been Smith and Brown or Brown and Smith, however you kind of look at those two. And then nobody else. It's like, I'll go to basketball for you, John. Daryl Morey and Myers, this video has resurfaced of them having this conversation at the Sloan a couple of years ago where Myers is talking about depth and Morey saying, well, how do you get the depth? You just spent $15 million on Andre Iguodala. You could have chosen to give $5 million to 3 different players, but you chose not to do that. You wanted the better player. So the Eagles now have the depth at wide receiver. They don't have they didn't go the Sixers route. Pay the 2 guys and give them all the money, and then the rest of the group stinks. Now you got a bunch of guys that are pretty good. So which way is going to work out better? And if I look at the Seahawks and a lot of teams in this league, they have the one guy with everybody else who knows their role. I think Wicks will probably fill in very nicely because he knows this offense. He'll be a good complement to Smith on the other side. Now you have your true slot guy that can really work the hashes and work the middle of the field. They might have had guys that could do that, but you also wanted those guys to do other things. Now you have a guy that can just concentrate on that. And then you throw Hollywood Brown in, and he can be your field stretcher, when you need that element. So do you like the depth or do you like the 2 stars? I don't know.
I mean, how much difference is there between, Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts just from a style of play standpoint where
that's a fair question. That's a fair question. Okay, now you have the depth. Now you can ask more things. I don't know what you could ask Dotson to do. What was the ceiling of things you can ask Dotson to do? He wasn't a true slot guy.
I'm interested to see what but he's in Atlanta, so they don't have a quarterback either. Although, Tua can throw the ball. He's just, but I mean, he's a turnover machine, but he can put up some numbers at least. Like I'm not convinced that Jahan Dotson's a bad player. I'm not.
But I don't think he's a true slot guy. I think he is kind of he's kind of stuck in
the
middle.
I think Devontae played a lot in the slot. I think people don't realize how much he played in the slot.
And that's probably and I don't know that the problem is you put him in the slot a lot, and there's things you want to do with him outside too. So you're kind of like, I got to take you over here. It's like the guy who,
they definitely have more versatility in their wide receiver room. They, Howie mentioned he wanted to build he wanted to build a basketball team, basically.
Yeah.
Wide receiver and have some depth. But by the way, how about Jared McCain last night? Congratulations to him. It keeps getting worse for the Sixers. But, one of the things, and to go back to your NBA point as well, it's one of the things that bothers me about the NBA. Like, there's only one way to ever win. Before it was like, well, you got to have the 2 stars and you got to have the 3 stars. And now you got to have the depth. And it's like, doesn't it? When does it register, Mike, that you can win in different ways? And I bring back to football because like the Eagles won in a very unique fashion. And now they're shifting to copy everybody. Well, you got to play this way. You got to play.
I have brought this up so many times when people complain about Sirianni or complain about things with the Eagles. And they basically dismantled their staff to go get Green Bay staff. And I'm thinking, why am I trying
that, by the way?
Why am I the Philadelphia Eagles trying to emulate the Green Bay Packers? We've beaten you. We've won multiple Super Bowls. You keep getting all the buzz before the season starts, and you keep trying to come at us. And we beat you in Philly. We beat you in Green Bay. We beat you in freaking Brazil. Why do I want to emulate you? That, to me, is bonkers. I agree. Like, why are the Philadelphia Eagles? I said people should stop complaining about Nick Sirianni and the way the Eagles do things and maybe trying to emulate the Philadelphia Eagles and the way they do things. And here the Eagles shifted the whole thing and tried to emulate the Rams, it's been the hammer and the nail series with the Rams, but yet they want to try to be the Rams.
Yeah.
Green Bay, same thing, all because of aesthetics, because it might look better. I
see it a little different. Like, I agree that the Eagles have obviously been the more successful team, but that's not to say you can't take something from those teams, adding it to your recipe, which is already, like you just said, better, and improving your own recipe. Like, I don't think anybody was really happy being the 23rd or 20 or whatever the offense was,
I agree. Well, that doesn't mean, yes, you can take parts of those things and kind of implement. It's like if the 90s era Dallas Cowboys said, man, you know what? Those run and shoot Houston Oilers look really cool. Let's just scrap this Emmitt Smith thing and try to just throw the ball all over the place. Like, what are we doing here? You have this great offensive line. Now, I think one problem with the Eagles could be that they are starting to wonder if their offensive line, I've come on here many times and opined that the star of this team is not A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or even Saquon Barkley. The star of this team is the 5 guys up front that allows those guys. Saquon Barkley's great, but in New York, he's not 2,000 yards Saquon Barkley. He's only 2,000 yards Saquon Barkley because he had the star of the show blocking for him. Last year, when that star of the show wasn't as good, Saquon Barkley, you ain't 2,000 yards Saquon Barkley by yourself.
No,
The
he's
star of
giant
this team,
Saquon Barkley. Yeah.
yes, exactly. The star of this team in their most successful campaigns has always been the offensive line. And I think the Eagles were cognizant. This is where Sirianni deserves a lot of credit. He understood that and said, as much as I want to fight it and use Brown and Smith, I'm sticking with these 5 guys because they're my stars. And last year, I think they put too much faith in those stars that they would come around eventually, and it never really happened, and then they just couldn't catch up.
Are they putting too much faith in them right now in the Medellin stem cells? I mean, or have they done enough, in your opinion, to get that star of the show back to being the star?
That is where I think, guys, they decided to shift the offensive identity from less of the offensive line being the biggest factor to now we got to get timing, because I don't know how good this offensive line is going to be. So it's going to be less on protection and more on 1, 2, 3, bang, 1, 2, 3, bang.
Oh,
it doesn't
boy.
mean you can't, but a lot of these teams in the league, they have crappy offensive lines, right? They have to.
Yeah, right. You can prevail. Like, I know we say the Eagles' O-line wasn't good last year, but by all standards, they
better
weren't
than
that
most.
bad. They were
was
like the
not.
number 2 pass blocking O-line in football, and I think run blocking, they were middle of the pack or somewhere around
Well,
there.
run blocking was the issue more than pass blocking.
Right.
no
Run
doubt
blocking
about it.
was the major issue, and that derailed everything because they were so used to first down, turn around, hand it off 6 yards. Same exact play last year, turn around, hand it off 1 yard, if that. So now instead of second down and 4 or 3, you've now got second down and 9. And that changes the whole complexity of what you're doing next. And the year before, I said, you could literally, if you were Kevin Patullo, watch a game and verbatim call the same plays down the sheet. And it would be thrown all off because the first play of the game, that guy got 7 yards and you only got 1. And now you're just constantly like, I don't, so.
And by the way, people stop listening because that's what they do. But, Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni were very cognizant that the issue was first down last year. They were trying to fix it. They couldn't fix it. And I continue to think that's the goal, fix first down, and everything else falls into place. But to your point about it's got to be about timing. I mean, where's the evidence that they have a timing quarterback? Where's that evidence?
No, you don't. You're putting a lot on this guy's plate to say, we have now changed everything. Now it's all on you. So many people believe that this is kind of a show me type of year for him, where
that's
he's
a
going
dumb way to.
to.
I'm gonna say, Mike, that's a dumb way to do business. And I don't often say that about the Eagles because they generally make good decisions. Like I say it all the time. I've yet to meet a coach who goes in and says, you know what, let's build around the things our quarterback is uncomfortable with. Like what at any level, what does that make sense?
It's crazy to be like, we have a team that could probably win a Super Bowl, and we're going to roll the dice and gamble that the quarterback can do everything we're asking him, even though we have never seen it and have no evidence that he can. I mean, it's
John, what you say about that makes way too much sense for me to not think that they're going to put that in a paper shredder. So if they did put that in a paper shredder and they're not trying to change him into something he's uncomfortable with, what are the methods for this team with this style of quarterback, with this personnel, where they could actually feasibly improve the offense? And it makes sense based on the players on the team. Because the whole timing thing, Mike, I mean, I get where you're coming with it, but that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, the only evidence that we have, too, is that they have taken it through the paper shredder in the past. When they threw the ball all over the yard in 2021 or 2022, whatever year that was, with Jalen and Nick's first year, in 7 games in, he said, this isn't working. We got to get rid of this. So the only problem is, man, you brought this guy in here. You've changed a lot of the personnel. Let this guy really pick what he wanted to go with. And then 7 games in, you're going to say, sorry, gave you 7 games. Now it's my turn again. I mean, that would be a very interesting dynamic. You'd be coming out of London in week 5, Carolina week 6, and then I think Dallas is right around there in week 7. You'd be going into a situation 7 weeks into the season where you're like, We're about to switch things up because you don't have a bye to the 10th week where you might say, okay, let's reset and kind of implement some of the things that we've done in the past because we're struggling along here. Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And that's going to be, let's be honest, that's going to be, the offense is going to be the story of this season, and how Sean Mannion navigates this and what it looks like and what the end game looks like, whether they morph, whether they blend. That's a word he used time and time again at his first press conference. So sounds like he understands that, there is going to have to be some blending, and that is a good.
But to Zander's point, you should have some blending, right? You
Yeah,
should have the
Yeah.
strengths of what you've done, and then adding the strengths of what Mannion can add to this offense.
But so what does it look like? And look, maybe we're not going to know that answer until we see it, and maybe that's not why we're not NFL coaches. But what does that look like? If it's not the 1, 2, 3 drop fire and timing passing and all those things, what does it actually look like to improve the passing game while not relying on the offensive line?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Why I think it's the running game. It's first down. That's what they need to fix. Everybody's so hyper focused on the passing. I think it's the running game.
I agree.
And that means tight ends, wide receivers,
and this is on
offensive line.
Yeah, and this is on, on the macro level, it's the running game. But in 2020, when they win a Super Bowl, you got a guy running for 2,000 yards, and he's just running through holes that are just massive. Well, now everybody has to start creeping to try to stack that box. So now when they go back to throw, there's a lot less bodies back there because they're all up in the box. Well, last year you can't run. So now the defensive coordinators are saying, I don't need to sneak this guy up or that guy up. We can go off the line a little bit more. So now those same pass plays that were successful in the past, even however elementary they may be, they were open because they only had a lot of one-on-one coverage because all those guys are putting their focus on Saquon. Well, now I don't focus on Saquon as much. I dust off the line a little bit or drift off the line. And now that same pass play, there's a second guy there. So now I'm not going to that second guy. Well, now I'm holding and I'm rolling out of the pocket. And then we see you running towards that sideline and just throwing the ball down for dear life. I mean, so the fact that they couldn't run the ball also allowed teams to drift into more zones so that those windows that were open in the passing game were no longer there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Matthew Stafford or the Super Bowl champions. If you're in second and third and long all the time, you're not going to be successful. You can overcome it more if you have Matthew Stafford, but if you're consistently in third and long, you're not going to have an effective offense.
No.
Period. That's the whole goal of modern defense, is to get you to third and long. That's the whole goal. And then it becomes havoc and blitzing, and you got to get the football out of your hands.
Yeah, and you could see what happened to that to the Eagles with that last year. The season ends on a 4th and 12, 4 verts because John, like you just said, it was havoc.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel Jeremiah tweeted this yesterday. I want to ask both you guys. He said, I'd like to revisit the concept for every NFL team. To build a championship foundation, you need to fill these 12 spots. And these are the 12 spots. You need the quarterback. You need 3 offensive playmakers. You need 3 quality offensive linemen. You need 2 pass rushers, and you need 3 defensive playmakers. Now, I think you can argue that the Eagles still fill that, but I don't think it feels as comfortable as it once did. So, do you have the quarterback? Some people say yes, undoubtedly he's already done it. Some people are saying he's descending.
Well, it depends how somebody defines that. If the only way to have the quarterback to them is have a top 5 quarterback, then no. But if
they've already proven, so I'm going to
look
check
at Seattle.
that.
I mean, look, I like Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold's like
I'm
top
checking
8
that
quarterback, but I think he's a good enough guy to get the job done and do what you need to do.
Now, the 3 offensive playmakers used to be yes. You had AJ, Devontae, Saquon. Now it's Saquon, Devontae, and Mekhi Lemon, Dallas Goedert. Not so clear cut. All quality offensive linemen. You have Lane still playing at a high level. Be healthy, Jordan. And then you have to cross your fingers that Landon or Cam can be that third guy. Is that still viable? 2 pass rushers. Now I think you're a little bit better with Grenard, and you have Nolan Smith and or Jalix Hunt. Is that good enough? And then it playmakers all over the place with Cooper and Quinion and Zach Ball. And so they definitely have the defensive playmakers. Where do you think those guys? I think that they've taken a step back in this.
Yeah,
if
well,
you need those 12 spots.
The third playmaker is fringy, right? I mean, Goddard, I think, maybe has more in him than they've been able to utilize because they haven't needed him. But could he be a guy that gets more? I don't know. He's always hurt. I mean, that's been a problem for him too. But
that's my problem with putting Lane in there too. Like Lane, look, I love Lane. Don't get me wrong, but at 34 years old, he missed half the season last year. Now he's a year older, and we're supposed to expect that's coming back for a full year.
Well, are they going to have 3 quality offensive linemen? I would say they still have a chance to have that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. I mean, your 3 quality. It's like the Sixers. When you have Paul George and Joel Embiid, you're really good. But I don't know when I'm getting those guys. I don't know when I have those guys. I don't know when I'm getting out of Landon.
Well, but then it might be Jordan, Landon, and Cam. I wouldn't feel as comfortable because I don't know what Landon is.
But all 3 of those, other than Jordan, every guy you just mentioned has an injury issue where you're like, I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, Lane Johnson has – I don't want to compare him to Joel Embiid's availability, but it feels like, it's a flip of the coin whether he's getting through half a season anymore. And when he plays, they're great. And when he doesn't, they struggle a lot. So, oddly, the basketball player gets a lot of heat for his availability and the football player not as much, which is an interesting dynamic there if you want to roll down that road, which I don't on this Wednesday morning.
What do we overrate Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt in Philadelphia? That's that second pass rusher.
I've never overrated Nolan Smith and never thought he was all that great. I just feel like he has it in him. His size is an issue. I hate to go back to basketball. Look at Tyrese Maxey. He's great. He's exciting. He's fun. He's 3rd-team All-NBA. It doesn't mean he stinks. It's hard to be what you want him to ultimately be at that size. And Nolan Smith, if he's just a little bit bigger, he probably is a game wrecker. But because he's a little bit smaller, he flashes, and he just doesn't flash enough. And I think his size, he's constantly hurt, and it's hard to be an every down game wrecker at that size. I mean, how many guys?
I think the collection of the two makes people feel better. But I think the other big part of it, John, is people are projecting a lot on Jalix, he's going to take another step forward and he's going to be, and look, I'm optimistic that he will be that too, but until he is that, I don't know that we can assume that will come to fruition. But I think the collection of those two is not a bad, other side to join.
I think it's fair, and why I brought it up, I think it's fair. And again, Daniel Jeremiah tweeted it out. If that's your formula, you need to fill those 12 spots. The Eagles still might be there, but it was more definitive in the past.
Yeah, all those guys that you're putting in those slots, not all of them, but some of them, your injury question marks about durability come into play. They when they're playing their best, they can fill those slots but it's hard for guys to play that consistent. Jalen Hunt's an interesting one just because people remember the run that he had in the Super Bowl, and to some extent Nolan Smith too. I think that's why those guys similarly get this remembrance of that great run they both had during the playoffs. Hunt, who has the size and the physically freakish nature, I think people are more I don't want to say giving him a pass. I mean, he hasn't stunk by any stretch of the imagination, but feel like there's another level for him to get to almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do think
now, would you rather have Josh Sweat or Grenard?
Grenard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would you bring Josh Sweat back?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd almost have to trade Nolan for him. Would I rather have Josh Sweat than Nolan Smith at this stage? Yeah. For 1 year.
Because I don't think they're going to pay Nolan. So
right. So if you're not going to pay Nolan
for 1 year, yeah, I
driving 137 miles an hour probably doesn't help his cause. That being said,
yeah, but that's a lot of money. You got to pay Josh Sweat, which they didn't want to pay before.
Yeah,
now they can rework the deal.
You can rework the deal. It's if you can get out of having to make the decision on Josh Sweat, although
he's a good player, and obviously he fits. He understands.
Mike, how much do you think that incident that Nolan just got himself into with the speed
right after, what I thought of was last week when I was on, we were talking about how the Eagles never get into trouble.
Yeah.
You never hear anything about them, blah, blah, blah. The guy drives 137 miles an hour. Luckily, he didn't hit anybody or do anything. I mean, he just, I guess, is like drag racing to see how fast I go, which I never, there's thrill seekers out there that like to do that stuff. Not personally me. I don't want to jump out of a plane. I don't need to do any of that. I don't know what kind of exhilaration driving 137 miles are, but I would imagine the Eagles are saying that was the decision that I have to question what are you doing? So yeah, I definitely think they have to work, especially when you're coming up on a contract decision. And if you were already teetering because of on the field performance, which has been good, not great, now I got to factor in off the field stuff. And now that comes into play. If he's killing it on the field, I'm sure driving 137 miles an hour in a 70 probably doesn't go high enough up on the register to demote you. But if I'm questioning your on the field play and your durability, and now you add that into the mix, I'm sure it factors in a lot more than maybe it would have.
At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform, at Mike Gill Show as well, his YouTube channel. Get to see all the interviews from 97.3, the Sports Bash, Down the Shore. Listen every day, 2 to 6. I'm going to give you a promotion here, Mike. You know who Josh Brooks is? Nobody knows who Josh Brooks is, so I'll just tell you. That is the athletic director of Georgia. What do you do with Kirby Smart? And by the way, it's a joke. Kirby Smart's probably got more power than Josh Brooks. At what point do you say, what the hell is got this? That Nolan Smith, there's been over 20 people arrested from that program since 2023 for driving recklessly. What is going on?
Yeah. Well, got a lot of young guys who I've been on a college campus with a football program where it's not quite at the level of Georgia. And let's just say they have a good time and they can walk around that campus with a lot of lack of fear of I'm going to get in trouble for doing things. So you put young guys in there.
Well, I mean, there's Alabama, there's Ohio State, there's Michigan, and I'm not saying they're the only ones with problems. You see Rashee Rice, and he's what is he, an SMU guy? I mean, but it just seems to be so outrageous at Georgia. I mean, this alone with Jordan Nolan Smith, this is the second time, and Jalen Carter. I mean, I don't know. Is it just, hey, young people are stupid? I don't. There's got to be something that Georgia needs to do, or is it just about they're successful and Kirby's great?
By the way, did you ever talk to the Nielsen guy?
Oh yeah. No, they're bullshitting us, Mike. They have no idea. I love those guys, and thanks for the time. And they know I love them. But, I mean, they change their methodology every 3 months. I pressed. I can't get an answer. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Outside of, like, we're in a world where everybody thinks we're being watched and listened to anyway. Like, outside of like having something definitively in your television tracking what channels you're on. I don't know how that's not possible.
Well, that's not, I mean, it should be easier than ever to figure out a concrete number because of smart TVs and set boxes up, that literally can measure the minutes you're watching and all. It should be easier than ever. And for some reason, they keep changing their methodology every couple of months.
I don't know. Like, I have YouTube TV, so I don't know how YouTube TV gets factored into.
Oh, it gets factored. It all gets factored. It's easier to measure YouTube TV than it is traditional.
That's what I mean. Like YouTube TV, they should definitively know, hey, there's 2.5 million people watching this game right now because we can track YouTube TV. Probably has some sort of data.
They can, but the problem
how
is
does the YouTube TV get integrated with the cable numbers? Because cable
that's
television,
what they're trying to do with panel plus data. It used to be only and that's what they're trying to do. And they keep changing their methodology because people are complaining, basically. And, how much weight do you have? That doesn't seem like a good way of doing things. But who am I? They're the experts. And people pay a lot of money. And advertising rates are generated off Nielsen numbers, nothing else.
Well, we're still rocking off of a diary. So if anybody gets that diary, make sure you write down. Right, that's crazy, right? That's how they do ratings for us down the store.
20 rating. I put that up on my X account because I'm proud of it. What monster rating. So I'll give Nielsen credit for that rating when it's ours, Mike.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Good stuff, man. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow him at Mike Gill Show. Mike, thanks for taking the time per usual, brother. We will talk to you again next week, hopefully. All right, man.
See ya.
Peace, man.
All right, thanks,
bud. It's right here on Birds 365. Great stuff there. We're gonna have BLG in hour number 2 as well. Johnny Mac, it all worked out for you with the guest today, even though you thought it was a Tuesday morning.
Oh man,
a Wednesday morning here.
I'm boy, that's the most football-y thing I've ever done. One day off, but it is a cautionary tale why football teams hate these weird weeks with Wednesdays and Thursdays. They don't like it. They like routine. I literally had no idea. I came on, you could tell the people. I came on and you're like, do we have, I'm like, it's Tuesday. I didn't even think to contact them because it's Tuesday in my mind.
Right. No doubt. All right, John, a couple things I wanted to hit before we get to BLG. Obviously, we have OTAs today. We talked about a lot of Eagles, but there is some NFL news I think we ought to get to here. A couple things that are maybe not so good, but also some contractual stuff that I think is interesting. Derwin James got paid a massive deal yesterday. I'm sure Cooper DeJean is somewhere with his feet kicked up and a couple Dallas cheerleaders under his arms, smiling about the new deal that Derwin James got. Any reaction to that? Another $25 million large for a safety, Johnny Mac.
I mean, no surprise that he got what he got. Maybe the best safety in football. So the numbers keep going up, and that's still less than corners. So it's the Cooper DeJean stuff is going to be interesting. I think the Eagles are just going to pay him like a top tier defensive back and sort of morph everything together, but we'll see how it
so do you think when you say top tier defensive back, are you looking at the numbers of guys
corners
like
and safety?
Trent McDuffie that just got
paid?
paid?
Exactly.
Okay. So you're looking at the 30s.
So you look at the top 10 and corners get paid more than safeties. You look at the top 10 as a whole, try to get them probably in the 5th or 6th range, something like that.
26 to 28 million, somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Like you don't want him to go ahead of McDuffie because that might be Quinion.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think that's how they're going to approach it. But it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem. But the Eagles seem to realize what they have in Cooper DeJean, so I don't think it's going to be a problem that they don't solve. Because he is a very unique player who is maybe the most versatile defensive back in football at a time when, more and more teams, not necessarily the Eagles, but more and more teams are going to the so-called positionless player in the back seven, guys who can play a bunch of different spots. Vic's more structured than that, but there's others. Like I always bring up Metellus, who played 13 different positions. They're making up positions. There's only 11 spots. He played 13 positions. I don't know how that's possible, but guys like that who just play all over. And James is like that. He's one of those
a hell
guys.
of a player. Yeah, he's really good.
And he's always an all-pro safety, but he plays more in the slot than he plays in safety. He just plays all over. And he's a really good player. So no surprise. Second time, I think he set the market for safeties. So he's been a good player for a long time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. John, another news, not so positive news here, but seems like a lot of NFL players getting hit with stuff this offseason. Josh Jacobs yesterday.
Oof. I mean, you got to wait and see. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
But I mean, the allegations are not pretty, and the allegations are the point that if they're true, they're probably going to have to cut him. And he is out of guaranteed money, I saw, so it wouldn't be that hard to cut him. But he's a very good player, obviously. But we've seen this in the past, and we wish guys could be smarter, but look, you have young men who have a lot of money, and in this case, you have an influencer. Let's just wait and see what the allegations, if they're true. They're true. In this environment, he's going to have a very difficult time. But this whole idea that you believe every allegation is dumb. It really is, because there are people willing to say some fucked up shit when they see some money on the horizon.
Yeah, that's very true. Got to wait until see how it all plays out. But to John's point, the one charge, there's, I believe, 4 misdemeanors. The one being the felony would be the big issue for Josh if there is if he is guilty of it. But we do not know that to be true yet. We will see what happens with Josh Jacobs. And John, the rest of the league is some teams getting to OTAs. I saw Lamar Jackson was back at OTAs yesterday. How about the Cowboys legend Emmitt Smith lauded Dallas for their quiet offseason? Said we don't need all that drama.
Quiet. They never do anything.
I know, but the Eagles got more drama than the Cowboys. I said I've been joking. We're like the Cowboys now, except we win. That's the only difference. But we got all the drama we need, man.
Well, the Cowboys drama is all related to not paying guys on time or being proactive and waiting. Right. And obviously last year it turned into trading Micah Parsons, and who knows? It might this year with George Pickens. Who knows? But did he sign his franchise deal? I don't know.
Pickens?
Yeah,
he did.
He did? All right. Then they should be fine for the season. But
yeah, they're good for the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually they don't really do a lot of things when it comes to free agency and that kind of thing. The judging on them last year was kind of a unique, because then after they traded Micah, they traded for Quinnen Williams, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, the Eagles have been the drama team, and it's mostly related to AJ, but you have the Jalen Hurts stuff. Yeah, Chris Sims came out with his, not the full list, but did you see that?
Yeah, I did. He had Hurts where 21st?
21st. Which, basing off just last season, you can make an argument for that. You can make an argument.
Look, I don't think Jalen is the 21st best quarterback in football, but I will say this. I mean, when your offense isn't performing at a high level, and you're the quarterback of that offense, you're not typically going to be graded high amongst, the people who are grading the quarterbacks. That's just kind of how it's going to go. So Hurts can correct that narrative, but when you're the 25th offense and your passing game stinks, yeah, you're probably going to take a hit on the quarterback rankings,
Yeah. Well, and because early when he's been doing that for years, and early, he didn't have them in the top 32. Like, yeah, if you go back to, I guess, 2021 going into whatever it was. But so you have this, Eagles group that says, and I saw one was hating his annual tradition of hating on Jim. He had him in the top 10 the last 3 years. He didn't have a good year. He was 10th last year, coming off 2024. And let's be honest, that's because they won the Super Bowl. He didn't play like the 10th best quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, people just make up what they want to. He did not play well last season. It's okay to admit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going exclusively off of 2025, I don't think that's a crazy rating. I really don't. But I don't think Jalen is the 21st best quarterback in football. But again, if you're going,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't.
Coming off like Malik, like he's only up to 19, and Malik Willis is 19. Like I'm not putting him ahead of Malik Willis. I'm not putting Malik Willis ahead of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, come on,
that's absurd.
I got to look at who he has in front of him. And
he has Malik Willis at 19 and C.J. Stroud at 20, and Jalen Hurts at 21.
Oof.
Now that he's only up to 19, that I know of. Maybe he did more today or whatever. But I wouldn't put Malik Willis ahead of CJ Stroud. I think that's absurd, even though he had obviously a shitty playoff game. And then after him, Jackson Dart's 22, Cam Ward's 23, Geno's 24, Jacoby Brissett's 25. So that's the kind of company he's keeping. Which, coming off of last year, and I don't even know how you grade, like, Carson Beck is 43. Why is he even in this?
I guess he does the new quarterbacks that were drafted.
I don't know. But, I mean, it's silly. Yeah, Mendoza's at 33. Like, why?
I mean, even Jaden Daniels, 22.
No, Jackson Dart. Jaden Daniels is not on the list, so he's above 19. Jackson Dart is 22.
Okay, Jackson Dart. Someone in the chat said Jaden Daniels is 22. So I was gonna say that's not true.
No, he's not been listed yet, so he's in the top 18.
I don't know where. I can't find this damn list. Was it only on YouTube?
I don't know where. I just had it.
Listed out. Yeah.
But it's Chris Sims doing the show with Florio still, right? So
I think so.
I think he just does it on that.
Fair enough. They post all that on YouTube. All right, good stuff there. Yeah, not so good in terms of the Hurts rating for Chris Sims, but I'm sure Eagle fans will have a field day with that. They've been attacking Chris Sims for years. All right, so I'm sure they'll just continue doing that, John. We're going to have BLG coming up. We got Brando Shreds. Here he is. What's up, Brando? Jurgens told us the real reason Hurts doesn't go under center. He doesn't want to touch sweaty ass. Plain and simple. Not joking. He said it on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
Yeah, well, that's not the case. They talk some silly shit on Bussin' with the Boys, and he takes snaps under center all the time. Have you seen the tush push? I mean,
it might be fair to say that Jalen doesn't like touching.
I'm sure he doesn't. Very few people do, but it doesn't. They're obviously making a joke in that instance.
Come on, Brando. $5 for that. Come on, Brando. I appreciate the.
I mean, have you seen the tush push? He takes snaps from under center.
Yeah, it's true. That's true for quite a bit of them, quite a bit of touchdowns. All right, good stuff, Brandon. Appreciate you being here. We're going to have BLG coming up here in a little bit. John, what time are things today for OTAs?
Nick is talking at 11:40-ish. Practice is at 12:20. Assorted players are after practice. 1:55-ish is the tentative. Jalen Hurts among them. Jalen will probably go last, though, so if you want to hear from him, don't get there at 1:55 because he will take some time. Yeah, that's the schedule.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, looking forward to seeing what we learned from OTAs. Probably very little, but it will be good to see the Eagles back in the facilities and press conferences. Hear from Nick, hear from Jalen. Kind of restore some football to the air, John, to the airways, which will be good to see these next couple of weeks for OTAs. Will also be good to see BLG, Brandon Lee Gouton, set to join us here this morning on Birds 365. You can follow him at Brandon Gouton. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. He joins us here on Birds 365. BLG, a good Wednesday morning to you, my friend. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. It's exciting to think about. We'll be out there at Eagles OTAs today.
Yes.
We'll be out there. I don't know what day it is, but I did know I'd be out there, BLG. So apologies to you. That says I'm a football guy. Like, if you screw me up one day, I just think it's that day. You know, that's why these Thursday night games, these Wednesday night players hate that stuff because it's all about redundancy and doing the same thing every week. So apologies there. Did not know it was Wednesday, but glad you were able to hop on here. And you're right, we're getting out there. So what do you want to see? What are you looking for first? I assume it's got to do with Sean Mannion in the offense.
Yeah, it's Jalen Hurts under center, right? Like I think that's one of the bigger schematic things you could see. And now, obviously, those are limits on that. You know, we're not going to be like, oh my gosh, it's a total offensive revolution. I think just based on one practice. But I think you want to see glimpses. You want to see hints of change and of Sean Mannion's influence. Also, kind of interesting maybe to see, you know, where is he lining up? You know, like how is he handling practice? Like how involved is he? So I think all eyes will be on Sean Mannion for sure.
Oh yeah, and he's tall, not quite as tall as you, but he's going to be easy to spot out there.
That's right.
And
does he go with
does
he go with the Kelly Green? You know, Vic goes with the Kelly Green. You know, he's like the only one out of practice.
Did not. He went full black in the rookie camp. So, but he's like 6'6", 6'7", so he's noticeable when he's out there. So should be pretty easy to spot. We were talking about. One of my favorite parts of Big's press conference was him sort of rolling the eyes at the newfangled titles when it comes to the coaching staff. Like, I legitimately don't know if Vic knows that Joe Casper's the passing game coordinator. Like, the Big Fangio, he's the secondary coach, and the new guy's the assistant secondary. But you got to come up with all these different titles. And I say that to say this because I think a lot of people are like, well, you got too many cooks in the kitchen. I think the only cooks in the kitchen are Sean Mannion and Parks Frazier. Sean's going to, run the offense, and Parks Frazier is going to be the guy working with Jalen Hurts day to day on the fundamental stuff, which I think is very important. So the Josh Grizzard stuff, Jared Johnson stuff, those are just supplementary guys. They're not going to have much influence on Jalen Hurts and, getting him to the point where he needs to excel in this offense. Do you see it that way, or do you think it's different with all these different moving parts?
I knew you would like that answer, John. I knew you would like that Vic Fangio answer about the titles. I was thinking of you when he said that.
Me too, BLG.
I'm interested to see. I don't think we'll maybe get a good sense of this right away, but eventually with time, what Gerard Johnson specifically does, because his title is a little bit more nebulous and not previously used.
Special projects, I think.
Yeah. What does that mean? Is this like more advanced scouting? Is this about, maybe he like takes Cole Payton under his wing a little bit more and kind of works with him while, the other coaches are more focused on the players who are actually going to play this year? I don't know. So we'll see on that front, and we can kind of suss that out over time. But in large part, agree. I mean, you hire Grizzard to be your passing game coordinator. That's the role that Kevin Betulo had held before he was the offensive coordinator here. So, I think it's the way Doug Peterson once talked about the offensive coordinator position, I thought was really illuminating and kind of obvious, but the way he laid it out was really simple. And I think this is back at the time when Frank Reich was still the Eagles OC. And he basically said, to sum it up, like, a lot of these guys specialize in certain areas, like, third down, red zone, so on and so forth. And it's up to the offensive coordinator to coordinate all of those kind of things and put together something that makes sense to put in front of the head coach. A little different than when Doug was calling the plays, for sure. But ultimately, working with everyone there. So a long way to say the buck stops, I think with Mannion in large part.
Obviously, Mannion's big storyline, BLJ. How do you expect him, or how does he improve this offense while simultaneously losing the very best player on that offense?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the Eagles are clearly telling us, for the most part, they believe the talent is mostly fine. No, I think if they had their druthers, they'd be keeping A.J. Brown. I think that is clearly just too far gone, and that's where we've arrived. But by and large, they're saying the talent wasn't the problem last year so much as it was the coordinator, because that's the change they made. Now, I think we all know that's not quite true, because the offensive line was a big problem, and we don't know what Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens are going to look like this year. The Eagles are hoping they get healthier. Maybe they will. And if they do, that's great. And the Eagles could have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, which is huge. But we don't know that. So there's a lot of projection, I think, with the offense, not only just in terms of new scheme, but also what you can expect from some of these players who've been good players in the past, but we don't know if they're quite that level still.
Jalen Hurts is going to speak for the first time since the end of last season after practice today. Not that he's going to answer it, but what is the first thing that BLG wants to hear from Jalen Hurts?
I kind of want to ask him what percentage of the offense is different, because 2 years ago, you'll recall that
90, what is it, 95 or 90?
95, I believe he said, and that was downplayed by Nick Sirianni.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because
any kind of coaching.
It was interesting because Sean kind of brought up blending 3 or 4 times in his press conference, which I thought was positive, because I've been I don't get the mentality of building around things your quarterback is uncomfortable with. I don't get that at a base common sense level. So I took it as a positive that he was like, no, it's going to be a blend. We're going to look at stuff he's done well in the past and try to integrate some Packer stuff, presumably, which I'm okay with. I think that's the proper way to do it. My biggest concern was, no, we're going to play Kyle Shanahan's offense come hell or high water. Mm-hmm. Like, that to me would be the worst case scenario. Am I making too much of the constant use of the term blending?
I think good coaching would look like finding a good balance between having what Jalen Hurts likes to do and what he is good at, and also challenging him to grow and challenging him to maybe go a little bit out of his comfort zone. Not to the point where you're just saying, like you said, here's this new scheme, you have to adjust, deal with it. Like, that's not the right approach. That seems too heavy-handed. That seems too extreme. But you have to push him, I think, a little bit more than he's been pushed, at least as all the reporting would suggest. That, his role in the offense has been a very big one. And I don't think that is inherently a problem, but it becomes a problem when it is to the extreme of, let's say, they're not targeting the middle of the field, at one of the lowest rates in the NFL that they've targeted that area. So it's not that you have to suddenly be number one in the NFL in that area, but you have to bring it up a little bit. And I think it's about finding that balance between, again, what he can do well, what he likes, and some things that might challenge him more.
And I think BLG, and I don't know if you disagree, feel free to say if you do, but to me, it feels like that's also part of the reason the run game struggled. I know the offensive line wasn't perfect. I'm not saying they were their normal standard selves, but, like you just said, when you don't throw the ball to the middle of the field, Well, guess what? You make things a lot easier for a defense to play defense against you, which probably allows them to load up the box a little bit more to stop the run or do things like that. And, I've always thought if they can pass the ball a little bit more effectively than they have, I think that run game will open back up. That's not to say the O-line was perfect, but I do think they got to throw the ball better this year if they really want to get back to being able to run the ball, effectively, consistently on first and second down.
Especially if Jalen's not going to run the ball as
Right.
much. Like that's a big part of it too. I think it's okay if he isn't as big of a factor in the running game. If you see those improvements like you're talking about in other areas that can kind of compensate for that. Absolutely. But it can't be both. He's not targeting the middle of the field and also he's not running the ball. Like, what are we doing here at that point? And I do think he needs to run a little bit more than he did last year. I think there's a way to up that number from there, but still have it lower than it was in previous years if they're worried about protecting him. Again, it's about balance. I think that's the key word for like what they need to fix moving forward. Some of these things are a little bit out of whack.
Well, where do you think that came from? The decrease in running? Do you think it's physical ability as he ages, which is probably fair, for you see NFL players who just, you get to 30 years old and you can't do it the same. Do you think it's maybe his agent or his team, saying, hey, we got to get to the next contract. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Do you think it's the player himself? Do you think it's the organization? Where do you think the decline in running has come from with Jalen?
Yeah, the reporting, including from my good friend Jimmy Kempski, has been that, Jalen is a big part of that. Just not wanting to do it as much. I don't think that's because he's not a competitor. I think it's because he wants to make sure he's not getting knocked out of the games and he can be available. I will say, though, I've heard nothing to indicate that the team hates that and is like, oh, we really want him to run all the time. I think they're, to some extent, I think they're on board with that. But I do think they have to, again, it goes back to the word I've been saying, balance. You have to be in a spot where, because there's years past where it's Jalen's running too much. And then last year it was more like Jalen's not running enough. So I think you just have to find that sweet spot. And again, I think there's a way to get it up a little bit from where it was last year, but still be, not this crazy amount.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on the running game because I remember Shane Steichen complain. It's like he would get crap occasionally because he would run it too much and people would look at the box score and see like 15 carries. And he's like, and Shane would explain like, well, 7 of those were off schedule. There were 2 quarterback sneaks, and it ends up being 6 runs basically. So I kind of don't know which way to go with that. And Sean was asked that question. Sean Manning was asked that question, and he sort of, I guess, fended it off and said, well, we want to improve everything, basically. Did you hear that question? Did you like his answer? Did you glean anything from that answer? Because I really didn't get a good feel for the quarterback running game, but I'm not sure if that's going to be relevant moving forward. And I would lean towards more it's not going to be as relevant moving forward.
Yeah, I didn't get a strong sense, but just looking at the numbers again, in 2024, Jalen was at 10 attempts per game, at least in the regular season. And that went down to 6.6. And that was the second lowest of his career. The only lower amount was when he was a rookie, it was 4.2 per game. And that's, factoring in, he played some of those games with Carson Wentz, still starting and whatever. So that kind of skews the number. The point being, it's like almost 3 attempts or more fewer than where he's normally at in all of the seasons where he was a full-time starter. So again, that might seem like a small number when you're just looking at 3, but it's 3 per game and there's 17 games. So it's quite a bit. Look, I don't think the Packers, are they had mobile quarterbacks there, clearly, with Jordan Love and even Malik Willis, but I don't think the run game, was the main thing of what they're doing. I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think there's opportunities to pick your spots with it better than the Eagles. Certainly, I don't think they did last year. We didn't see that as much where, like you're looking at QB counter bash. And, one of those big runs was in the playoffs against the Rams. And that was a huge play in that game. And we just didn't see that last year. So I think there's a way to better incorporate those than they did last year.
I get the feeling, BLG, that everybody's so hyper-focused on the passing game, which I understand because of how poor it was last season. And the theory is that and Sean Mannion's here to improve the passing game. I kind of look at it. He's more about fixing first down. And when Nick talked to us pre-scouting combine, I thought it was interesting. From my standpoint, he put a little Easter egg in there, and it was, basically that. This is about the running game as much as the passing game. And people were throwing a lot of junk, he said, at the Eagles in the running game on first down specifically. And all of a sudden, if it's 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 12, and then you're in 3rd and long, I don't care if you have Matthew Stafford. I said earlier in the show, you're not going to be consistently successful in 3rd and long, no matter who you have. I think it's about fixing first down. I think everything falls into place if you fix first down. Is that too simplified?
I mean, I think it's a good place to start when you led the league in 3 and outs last year. Like, I don't think staying on script is always everything. I think that can be overblown, but I think there's a way to do it better than the Eagles did last year, again, which is so extremely bad that maybe that's just a good place to start. And then you can figure out things from there. They do need to be more effective early on and not put themselves in this terrible spot and things kind of just snowball from there. Because we saw that's just really not their recipe for success.
BLG, Mekhi Lemon, do you think how quickly do you think he gets into that number 2 receiver spot? I think it's going to be pretty quick. John's kind of in a wait and see. Maybe it takes him a little bit of time to win over that job. Obviously, you have some experienced players with Dontavian Wicks and Elijah Moore and guys like that. How quickly do you expect Mekhi Lemon to be that wide receiver 2 for this team?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of better be, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too.
Now, let's say Dontavian Wicks just looks great. He looks awesome. And Mekhi Lemon looks also good too. Then that's okay. That's fine. You'll take that for sure. But I think, with what the Eagles invested in Mekhi Lemon, with what his profile is, like he doesn't profile as this, totally toolsy, raw upside guy who needs some time to develop. No, like he profiles as a guy who is capable of handling a lot of volume. And I think the Eagles are counting on him to deliver on that front. And where I'm at with Mekhi is that I think I'll be quick to kind of form opinion on him either way, in terms of if we're starting to see, real promising signs and OTAs here, and that carries over to training camp, I'll be like, okay, I believe this. I think he's going to be a really good player. If not, I'm going to have some concerns. I don't think it's just like, oh, let's give him more time. He's definitely going to work his way through it. I know he's a young guy, and I know he'll be a rookie, but I think, part of the package here is you're supposed to see him look good early on. And if he doesn't, I'd be concerned about that.
I kind of think that way about Eli Stowers. Like, if he's not the toast of the town coming out of these OTAs and minicamp, I think that's a bad sign from the perspective. This is when athletic, tall guys stand out. They're playing flag football is what they're doing. Like, if he doesn't show that athleticism and be a difference-making receiver in 7-on-7s, and then blocking comes into it over the summer, I think it's going to be a slow start for him. Does he have to stand out in these types of environments?
He has to show you something. I think not even just necessarily for this year's outlook, but just the whole package, moving forward, like looking at his potential and his ceiling. Because I don't know how big of a role Eli Stowers is going to have this year, assuming Dallas Goedert stays healthy, which is a big assumption because he doesn't usually do that. But assuming Dallas does stay moderately healthy, let's say he misses, maybe like 3-4 games. I don't even know what Stowers' role is looking like, because in college at Vanderbilt last year, he was very much a part-time player. Like, he only played on about 40% of Vandy's rushing snaps, and he only played 59% of their snaps overall. Like, that's not a lot, for a guy who was a senior player and like a key player and was voted as, the best tight end in college football. Again, it's not like he's not UR Bernard or, someone like that. This total project out there. This is someone who is newer to the position for sure, translating from quarterback to tight end here. But we need to see what the upside is, at least, I think, in these offseason practices.
Bill G, what's your expectation right now for Saquon Barkley coming into the year?
I had high expectations for him last year. I thought he could have had an even better year, which is crazy to say because I think he had the best running back season in NFL history in 2024 when you count for the playoffs too and the championship accomplishment at the end of it. Because I thought he looked physically better than he did last offseason, than he did even in 2024. Now, clearly, that didn't come to pass. And I don't think it's fair to say that Saquon had zero culpability in the run game struggles. I don't think you can say that. But I just don't worry about him as the main problem. I worry about the offensive line giving him proper opportunities. Now, I know I can say that, and we saw some good things here and there from Tank Bigsby, better from Saquon than we did last year in terms of the numbers. But I think ultimately Saquon will be really good if the offensive line gives him a threshold of, being much more just reliable than it was last year.
All right, this is Philadelphia, BLG, so you know what happens. Josh Sweat is not happy in Arizona. Very good player. People love reunions. Josh Sweat back to the Eagles. To me, I mean, you would almost have to trade Nolan Smith for him. On your ridiculous versus legitimate meter, where is a reunion with Josh Sweat?
If the Eagles hadn't traded for Jonathan Gennard, entirely possible, I think, of a trade they could make. But they did. So I don't see how Josh Sweat fits here when you had just added Gennard and paid him, mind you, giving up assets in addition to that. They're very high on Jalen Hunt, as they should be, coming from year 1 to year 2, the progress he made. You're excited about what he might be able to do year 2 to year 3. They haven't just given up on Nolan Smith because he got arrested for speeding, which is very dumb, obviously. But they extended, or they picked up the 5th-year option on his contract for 2027, which is fully guaranteed. I don't think they're just giving up on Nolan, and nor should they, considering that, yes, he had a down year last year, but in 2024, he had an amazing run. And he was also still coming back from injury last year. So I don't think it's time to give up on Nolan. And then they paid Arnold Ebiketie real money. Like, they gave him, just under something, 4-point-something million guaranteed. Like, he's making the team. He's going to have a role here. So I just don't see how Josh Sweat fits in terms of what you also have to pay him, what you have to trade for him. The age, it just doesn't make sense to me. And also, again, the Eagles might bring Brandon Graham back even. So I just don't see the spot for him.
Have we got any update on that, the Brandon Graham thing?
So he's technically still on the roster, I believe, with his contract situation.
I was going to ask you, he's another June 1st decision people don't talk about.
Maybe the Eagles kind of want to see what they have, in some of these offseason practices before they make a decision there. But to me, I would just bring BG back. He wants to play.
I mean, there's nothing, he can still play. He still produces. He's an amazing, I don't know. I'm at the point where you got to pull the Band-Aid off at some point. They're pretty deep. He's got versatility. He can play edge, as you just pointed out. They got a bunch of edge. They're deeper at defensive tackle. I don't know. I'm like, I love the guy. It's my favorite Eagle ever to cover, but I do think it's a young man. At some point, you got to turn the page. I think it's that time. I just think, I don't know, because you got to pay him real money. He's still a good player. You got to, and hey, let's get Ty Robinson on the field. Let's see what he can do. If you're a 5th defensive tackle, I know that's not going to be a popular sentiment because Brandon's so popular, but I think at some point you do have to turn the page on a franchise legend, and that's what he is. But he's obviously not going to have a major role. So other than being a good influence in the locker room, is that something you need? Is that something you should do? And I guess you're in the camp of it's something you should do.
Yeah, Vic likes him. I know that. So I'm also.
I predicted that, by the way. When Vic got here, I said he's going to love Brandon Graham. He's going to love him.
Didn't want him to retire. And he came back, and I think Vic would like to have him at least for one more go. I think the inside out versatility he can give you, in addition to all the locker room stuff. Again, like I think that's almost undersold, like in terms of his ability to still play. He's still a good player, again, for the role he would be in. Like I think he can give you good production. So he doesn't need to be here for OTAs, I think, in minicamp practices. Like I think that's give him that time off. Let's get him maybe in training camp, let him ramp up a little bit more than he did last season. He's talked about wanting to do that if he does come back in 2026 here. But yeah, so you can see what you have in OTAs and then make that decision later.
BLG, if I leave safety aside for a second, where do you think the weakest part of this team is that you could see Howie trying to address before the season rolls around? Maybe it's nowhere. That's a fine answer too, but I'm going to leave safety aside. I think we all know, maybe there's some more moves to be made there. Do you see any other area on this team that looks overwhelmingly weak to you?
Well, the last thing on BG I just meant to say is that I do think I have this theory that, with the post-June 1st timing, I think part of like what the Eagles might do here is they announce the AJ Brown trade, and then they very quickly are like, "Hey, we're bringing BG back." Isn't
that's
that fun,
not bad.
everyone?
Yeah, I like that conspiracy theory. Yeah.
They used to do that with like Brian Dawkins in terms of.
I could see that.
When he was in the front office, like anytime something bad would happen,
good
be like, "Hey, we promoted Brian Dawkins again." So just remember, I said that here if that happens. To answer your question, though, Zander, when it comes to position, I think they should still address is, I don't know what the market's looking like. Probably not great for interior offensive linemen, but I just think that's a real concern to me. Yeah. It's not only just about the starters, because even let's say best case scenario, Juergens and Dickerson get healthy and play good. Great. Who's behind them? Like, who are your depth players that you feel good about? Maybe Drew Kendall steps up. I'm not going to rule that out. I'm intrigued by what Willie Lampkin might be able to do, but those players are just totally unproven. And last year you had Brett Toth, my guy, who played a third of the Eagles snaps. And he played an important role on this team.
Yeah, he played well too.
He did. And they don't have nothing behind him. So again, I don't know what you're really going to be able to realistically get there, but that's certainly a spot I'd be looking at.
Obviously you're not going to learn anything about the offensive line and with no pads, but you're going to see him line up. Who do you think the backup guards are going to be today, BLG? Because I'm like, obviously Kendall's going to be the backup center. He might end up being the top interior backup as a whole, but for camp purposes, you have enough bodies. So I presume it's going to be Willie Lampkin and Micah Morris. Who else maybe they move Miles Hinton inside, maybe something where they have nothing. To your point, as interior backups. And let's be honest, Landon Dickerson, we're counting a lot on Medellin stem cells, BLG. that might be Jalen Hurts number 1, Medellin stem cells number 2 on the Eagles season. And I don't know if you saw this, but I want to bring this up. I brought it up earlier, and I want to hear your thought. Daniel Jeremiah tweeted yesterday, last one from me here, at Brandon Gouton. Make sure you follow him on the X platform, bleedinggreennation.com. He'll be down at OTAs today, so check those guys out to get all the updates. So Daniel tweeted out the modern concept to build a championship foundation. You got to fill these 12 spots. You got to have the quarterback. Now we can argue, we'll default. Jalen Hurts has already done it. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been the 2. You need 3 offensive playmakers. Used to be a no-brainer with AJ, Devontae, Saquon. Now not so much a no-brainer. You need 3 quality offensive linemen. Used to be a no-brainer. Not so much anymore. 2 pass rushers. I think Grenard really helps in that. And you have Nolan or Jelix. And 3 defensive playmakers, which they have in spades. They have Quinyon, Cooper, Zach Bond, etc. I get the feeling if you're using that formula, the 12 spots used to be a no-brainer for the past couple seasons. I don't think it's as much as a no-brainer. If you're using that formula, where do you think the Eagles are?
Sorry, what's the question? I got lost a little bit.
So Daniel Jeremiah tweeted this out. To build a championship foundation, you need to fill 12 spots. The
Okay.
quarterback, which again, I think you have to default to they've already won, but he might be declining. 3 offensive playmakers, which no AJ, so that complicates things. 3 quality offensive linemen, which you used to have more than that, but I don't know if you can say it convincingly. 2 pass rushers and 3 defensive playmakers, which I think they're in good position for. I think they kind of slipped a little bit. I think they've had that in the past. I'm not sure they have all that right now. If you're using that formula, how competent are you in it?
The defense, I feel good about. No questions there, really, as much as I think you're questioning, do the Eagles have enough playmakers on offense that you really feel good about? Like, you feel good about Devontae Smith. I think most people would agree. After that, do you feel really good about Dallas Goedert? Might feel okay. Do you feel, and are you calling him a playmaker at this point in time when he averaged a career low 9.9 yards per reception last year? I don't know. Out wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon could be a playmaker, but I don't know that he definitely is. I think there's more projection there on offense. And you said quality offensive linemen. I think the Eagles have definitely at least 2. They definitely have 3. I don't think they definitely have 3 at this point in time. I think they could have up to 4. So the upside is there for sure. But in terms of what I can take to the bank right now, I don't know about that. And then to answer your depth question real quick about the interior there, I think your question made me think of this right now. I would presume that Drew Kendall, the Eagles feel best about him in terms of their backup interior offensive lineman. So it might be telling to me where he lines up could be a signal of where they feel worse about, in terms of if Kendall's lining up at center, maybe they don't feel as good about Cam Jurgens, or if he's at guard, I think that would kind of be more telling that they feel like he might have to be ready if Landon Dickerson's not going to be able to play.
Good point. Because I think Drew Kendall's the one guy, and I don't even know why. I feel confident about Drew Kendall. I don't know why. I've heard good things about him, but to your point, there's no proven commodity there at all. And to the point, it's going to be interesting. You're going to have Willie Lampkin out there, or maybe it's Micah Morris as a 6th-round pick, or maybe, as I said, it's Miles Hinton moving inside, something that we're not thinking of, because it doesn't look good on paper. And I'm a little surprised the Eagles had Michael Jordan, not that Michael Jordan, but veteran offensive lineman in as a rookie try. I thought they'd sign him. It was so obvious. He's a bunch of NFL starts, but coming in off the season that Cam and Landon had from a physical standpoint, I am very surprised. And there's plenty of time. And I think they'll add a veteran at some point. But right now it looks very, very thin. And maybe to your point, they just want to see what they have. But how do you judge offensive linemen in OTAs? Have you ever been able to judge offensive line in OTAs?
I think if you can, it's almost a really bad thing, right? Like if you're seeing someone can't just stay in front of their man at all, then that might be a concern.
Good point. More negative than positive. BleedingGreenNation.com. Wonderful job as always. I will see you down there later this morning, BLG.
All right. Sounds great.
No doubt. BLG, thank you, man. There's Brandon Gowan. You can follow him on X at Brandon Gowan. We appreciate him for doing it here today. Read him at BleedingGreenNation.com. Good stuff today. Johnny Mac, 2 good guest segments on the program, per usual. On our Wednesday
thanks to me going to 0 for Wednesday.
Yeah, well, you still got it done. I think that's a nice. I think it's actually a feather in the cap, John, where you acknowledge where you came up short, and the job still gets done, my friend.
Well, it's OTA day, so people are probably more excited to get down there and see some actual, I don't know if you can call it actual football, but closer to actual football. We're getting closer. And
you mentioned you have Nick before the practice, and then you'll get Jalen after, right? After the OTA.
Yes. but we're going to have assorted players. Jalen's one of them, but he'll probably go last. So, like I said, practice should end around 1:50-ish. But if you're wanting to hear from the quarterback, it's probably going to be a while. So,
and what should we be looking to hear? Because I do think, I wonder, John, and I am wondering, and I don't know if it's an unfair wonder. I am wondering if the organization and Jalen Hurts are at odds. Maybe not to a big degree.
Well, that's why I bring up the Leffler stuff.
Right, the proxy war.
Yeah. And that wouldn't surprise me. And you never know. I mean, Jalen usually is very close to the vest, but if he wants something out there, he'll get it out there. So maybe he'll want to address some of these stories that have claimed that, part of the reason the Eagles offense looked the way it looked is because Jalen Hurts pushed back on some potential changes. Maybe he'll want to address stuff like that. Maybe he'll want to address why he's working with Scott Leffler, even though Scott Leffler's not his quarterback's coach. He might want to get a message out there. So I think more likely it's going to be just spending stuff off, but you never know with Jalen. He might want something out there. And if he does, he'll get it out there.
Well, we'll see what he has to say about it. I did think it was an interesting part of the offseason where the Eagles fired him, basically. And, Jalen's out there working with him. Not only working with him, but posting pictures with him, which is obviously intentional. So we will see what that unfolds, what that looks like, and then who the other players are that we're going to hear from today. Will A.J. Brown be like the name today that everybody's thinking about, but nobody's allowed to say it, John? It's like
I don't think
that can't be addressed.
Honestly, I don't think anybody's thinking about it. I think it's like, I don't think it was played up enough that Sean Mannion didn't get one question about AJ Brown.
I think it was kind of not a good look on the media's part. I mean, it's asking what the plan is for AJ Brown is not a Mannion question. That's a Howie question.
Well, exactly.
But can't you ask Mannion, what's this offense going to look like when you lose the best player on this offense? I think that would have been a fair question and was a miss by the reporters.
Well, I'm not going to, because I mean, from my standpoint, I can only talk about me. Is I want to hear about stuff that's going to happen. Like, it's not interesting to me because I already know the answer. That's the point which I think a lot of fans don't understand. Like, this entire organization is moving forward with the idea that AJ is not here.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there should be no questions asked about it.
Well, that we've asked the questions of Howie and Nick multiple times, and we've got
it's a different phrased question for Sean, who's got to run the offense without him.
But it's easy for Sean
and money and contracts and trade. You know what I mean? That's different than what.
But
Sean
the way you framed it, it's easy for Sean to. Well, I've never had. I didn't coach him. He's never had him. Has no history with him. That was one of my theories with the Eagles holding off. I thought they might hold off till after June 1st for that reason, because they didn't. Like, I brought up Christian Parker in Dallas getting asked about Eagles. Like, it's not Christian Parker's job to bring in Nakobe Dean to the Dallas Cowboys. Like, he has no he does not have the power to do that. In that case, it'll be Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones. But if Will McClay ever talks, even Will McClay, that's a Will McClay question. That's a Howie question, and he's been asked it multiple times, and he's handled it the way he's handled it, which is AJ Brown's an Eagle. That bullshit.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, when he's not an Eagle, what's your offense going to look like, Mr. Sean Mannion?
Well, that's the point. I mean, he's never had him. So I think it was more valuable to get, what is he going to do? What is he going to do with the players he has?
Yeah, but it's still fair to ask him, all right, what, I know you've never had him, but the rest of the offense has played with him, and he's been a big part of this team that you're coming into. With AJ being gone, does that change the team's approach? Does it change your approach? How does that change how this offense is going to be successful this year without a player like that? I don't know. I mean, phrase it however you want. You're better at phrasing questions than I am. It's what you do for a living. But come on, John. There's got to be something that could have been asked of Sean Mannion about the loss.
I was actually proud of the goofball who didn't ask that question. That was, you're wasting time by asking that question. As opposed to obviously we've had very limited time with Sean Mannion.
Which is true.
That's my only point. Like, it's not like sometimes you have to ask those types of questions to get people on the record about something. But again, and that's what we do with, it was, to give you an example, the Eagles never announced Parks Frazier was the quarterback's coach. So when I got Nick before this guy, I had to ask him, hey, can you confirm Parks Frazier's the quarterback's coach? And he said, well, you guys know he's the quarterback. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get you on the fucking record because he won't get you on the record. Sometimes you have to do that. In the case of Sean Mannion, that whole press conference was about his offense, and he's not going to give away a lot, nor did he. But like I said, I like the blending. It was about finding out what he's going to do, and he's new, so he has no impart. I don't even know if he knows AJ.
Probably doesn't.
I mean, he was there once. I don't know, maybe that would have been interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you talk about the meshing of the systems, right? Every piece of game tape that Sean Mannion has watched with Jalen Hurts has included, for the most part.
I think he's burned that.
He's burning the game. Nothing is. Oh,
I think he's burning that. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a separate point. All right, John, I'm going to let you go because I know you got to get down there, so I can't hold you long today. Your final thought on this Wednesday edition of Birds?
We're here, OTAs, so everybody get excited, and you're going to see. Be careful who you're listening to when they post the videos, and just credit people for the videos. That's all.
Yeah, they're not gonna do that. But I did see someone putting up like a fake video the other day that you were chirping at, that you corrected.
Oh my God. It was Kyler Murray throwing a touchdown on the first play of OTAs to Justin Jefferson. Two things wrong with it. One, it was fans. It was training camp from last year. Two, it was JJ McCarthy throwing the ball. I'm like, come on. Are you really getting fooled by this shit, guys?
No, I don't know.
There are no fans at OTAs. Number one.
All right, John. Good show today, man. Get down there safely to the Jefferson Health Complex, and we will catch up with you tomorrow morning. All right, brother?
All right, see y'all.
All right, thanks, J Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Good show today. All right, two good guests, and Mike Gill and Brandon Lee Gouton. OTAs kicking off today. I can't say I agree with J Mac about there being no question that can be asked of Sean Mannion on AJ Brown. I mean, come on. What do you mean? The guy's the coordinator. He's a first-year coordinator. The team that he's coordinating for is trading away their best offensive player. You're telling me there's not even one phrasing of a question that would be relevant to him? Oh, come on. And Curtis, come on to you too. Come on. So I'm not buying that. Flexing. Good to see my guy. Flexing and stepping today. Flex, I've been saying, get him out of here. I'm sure you've been singing that about AJ Brown too. Get him out of here. I've been singing that all summer. Although I don't know that the Eagles are going to be in a good position post AJ Brown. Okay? Let's see what Senor's got to say. Senor, good to see you here this morning. Media should have asked if Howie is saying A.J. Brown is an Eagle, what is the plan to incorporate him into the offense in 26? That would have been pretty funny. Senor. I actually think it's a fair question, though. Like, all right, yeah, right. If that's what the GM is saying, I don't know what the question would be, guys. All right, I'm not a reporter. I don't think like a reporter. I don't act like a reporter. I don't talk like a reporter. I don't do anything like a reporter. But I have a hard time believing there's not even one version of a question that would have made sense to ask of Sean Mannion in his opening press conference. Okay. Hey, Bonnie, I agree. AJ is a game changer, so not having him in the offense is a travesty, to be honest. I don't care what people say. Agreed completely. Jeff Bone, what's up? Look at Jeff Bone, dude. I mean, the dude is looking like a stud in that profile. He's got the freaking bucket hat on. Looks like he's got a Fletcher Cox midnight green on. I mean, this dude, Jeff Bone, is a savage. The big silver. I just saw that. It popped up in my some fucking goober who lives in like London or some shit. Why are Euro people? Where's my boy Ian East? Or any of my Euros? How many Euros are listening right now? What is up with you guys being so goofy? What is up with the European Eagle fans being so goofy? I saw this guy. I don't even know the dude's name. I just see him on my X. He's got some of the worst takes you'll ever see. And he's like, oh, Cilio made a burner. I'm like, bro, Cilio can barely send a text message. You think he made multiple Twitter accounts and he's flipping between Twitter accounts to interact with people? Are you outside your mind? Cilio's been tweeting the same 22 photos of him from 1988, on his X for the last 10 years. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. Billy Don, what's up, dude? Hope you're doing well. I saw the pic you sent me over on X of your godson or your grandson. That was pretty great. All right. I mean, Sig, it's just ridiculous. I mean, Sills, I love you, but it doesn't get stupider than silly. I guess stupider is not even a word, is it? It doesn't get any more stupid than Cilio with Tech. The only person who was worse with Tech than Cilio was Jody Mack. Oh my gosh, he was horrible at using the computer. I had to call him, what do I do with the link and this and that? I'm like, oh gosh. No, yeah, most are not tech savvy at that age. I just think it's hilarious that people accuse Cilio of making a burner. I'm like, bro, what? Like Cilio's the only person in the world that doesn't like Jalen Hurts, right? Here's Bonnie. What up, Bonnie? Zander, Adam Schefter went from saying under the Fanatic last week that AJ was gone for sure on June 2nd and 3rd. Now today he says he doesn't know. Is that right? Here's Pump. Jalen is ass. See, there's plenty of people in here. All right. Plenty of people in here. Sills is terrible at tech. A lot of older heads are. Big Mike, are you terrible at tech too? It's like my boy. If my boy Tony's in the chat, he'll know. My guy Rick Corvette Conti, he does Tech Tuesday. All right. Okay. Here's a Euro. Paul, what's up, Paul? Just got London tickets. Go Birds. Bring in your Saquon shirt. I love it, Paul. Paul was one of our very first jersey winners, I believe, and that's what he is referencing there. Paul, congrats on tickets. Thanks for being a member for 45 freaking months. 45 months! What is that, 4 years? Are you kidding me? I ought to send Paul a hat and a care package for the game in London. Woo! Man, don't do this, Shefty. We were so close to getting rid of 1K. Oh, he's moping. Woo! Look at Philly Don. Yo, watch that age shit, Xander. Cilio excuses, all them hits he took in the head during his playing years. Philly Don is calling me out for my ageism. All right? For my ageism. Here's Steve. What up, Steve? Zay, it's going to be agonizing having to be up at 7 on a Sunday to watch the Birds. It's like 9:30, I thought, right? I'll be doing my pregame show at like 7. That's a travesty. But I'm happy for Paul Blome, who's going to be at the game. That'll be sick. Z, why are you skipping over my comments? Ryan, never intentional, brother. You got any Ryan? Maybe because they all suck. How about that? I'm just kidding, brother. I know. Don't get your panties in a bunch. I don't even see a comment. I don't even see a comment from the guy, and he's crying. T-Time, thanks for becoming a member. What's up, brother? Appreciate you. Twiz says one more year. One more year. That's his name. Is that his name? Juan? No, it's is it Juan? Arthur Juan? Nah, no good movies lately. I'm actually looking for a good movie to watch. You know what's happened to me, Sig? I guess something that seems to be happening across social media now. I don't know if it's just my algorithm, but all of my favorite movies and there's not many of them, but all of my favorite movies and all of my favorite TV shows. Like, I'm a YouTube guy. I'm not really an Instagram user. I haven't even gone on X. I fucking hate X now. It's really not a good app anymore. But anyway, I'll go on YouTube and, you could see like my algorithm right there. Let me turn off the stupid background thing. You could see like, there's like clips of my show, all my favorite shows and movies. There's a Dodge Viper SRT. Hell yeah. So like, I'll go on YouTube and I get these clips of all the movies I like. I feel like I've rewatched Scarface because I get so many of the clips on my YouTube Shorts. So I watch them, and then I'm like, hey, I don't need to watch a movie. I just got my fix. Yeah, that's right, Sig Lord. I see them all over the place, but they're very tailored to my. Oh, Daz, I watched it. I watched Gotti. I watched it, Daz. You talking about the one with John Travolta? I watched it. It was good. I love Italian mobster shit. I just do. I don't think my fiance likes it very much. She just doesn't like. She's like, I don't like death. I don't like watching people die. I'm like, well, that's all I fucking like watching. All right. If I'm watching something, it's got to be aggressive. It's got to be aggressive, or else I ain't watching it. Daz, you know what I learned from that movie? Oh, okay, not that one. All right, not that one. Is the other one? What's the other one? Yeah, the Travolta one was like 2018. I mean, it was like okay. That's why I was surprised. But what's the one that you're talking about? The earlier Gotti movie is better. All right, I'll look at that one. Gotti sucked. Twiz, something tells me you're a tough crowd. All right. Daz, it's not going to let me click that. It doesn't like show up as a link on my side. Z, who do you want to win it all in the NBA? Ro, I know this is going to be an unpopular take, but like, I kind of would rather see the Knicks win it than the Dusty Thunder. I kind of I get the like for Wemby. So if Wemby can get there, I'd be cool with Wemby. But I kind of like, I'm a Brunson guy. I like Jalen Brunson a lot. I know they're the New York Knicks. So I like Brunson. I like Bridges. I kind of, I like some of those guys. So I kind of would like to see the Knicks go, but I understand that won't be popular with Philly fans. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. If it's Spurs Knicks, I'm kind of I just want to see good basketball type of thing. I haven't watched as much of it as I should be. Like I didn't watch like I didn't watch. Did they play last night? I didn't watch the game last night. So the OKC's up 3-2 right now. I mean, that dude Shea though, he's just a stat machine. Wemby had a bad night. It looks like 20 points. Come on, bro. 20 points and 6 boards in the playoffs. That's not going to get the job done. Dude, that's why, Ro, I'm sorry, dude. I know it's an unpopular take. I know people love the Shea guy, SGA, but I don't want to watch you shoot 17 foul shots a game to have 30 points. I don't. I don't love your 30 points when 17 of them come at the line. It's like, congratulations, you had 13 points in regular buckets. It's like 4 baskets in today's NBA. I hate Jalen. How could you hate Jalen Brunson? The dude's a fucking baller, Ryan. Ryan, just add this to your list of trash takes because, man, you got quite a few of them. Jalen Brunson's a flat-out hooper. That's a dude I like to watch play basketball. Why did you have to fall in every shot? Dude, well, you can't like watching SGA then. It's just his face. All right, well, I don't care about his face. I could care less. I barely know what his face looks like. I just know the dude can hoop. I just know the dude can flat out hoop. Embiid, I'm not an Embiid fan. I find it physically impossible. See, I don't because my dad was a New York fan in some areas. My dad grew up in the projects, all right, with no dad. And my dad had one thing. All right, he was delivering newspapers since he was 8 years old. My dad had one item as a kid, and it was one of the dial radios. You know, in the old school radios, you could dial the radio, and the only station that he could get to not be static was the New York sports station, and he listened to the Yankees. He listened to the Yankees, every time they played. He would fall asleep to the Yankees. So, I grew up. That was my dad's experience. He liked the Yankees for that reason. Obviously, very easily explainable. And I have no pride. I don't mind the New York teams that much. I don't really care that much. I mean, it's like sports. It's like it's like it's inconsequential. It's sports. It's like people who cry about who people root for. I'm like, dude, you really care about who somebody cheers? A bunch of dudes running around a court, or a bunch of dudes running around a field, or a bunch of players skating around in ice. Like, who gives a shit? I don't care who you root for. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Someone likes the New York Yankees. Someone likes the New York Knicks. Someone likes the Boston Celtics. I really don't give a rat's ass. Fransky's good. Fransky does a good job. Scott Fransky. I like Fransky too. I actually like I've heard this is unpopular. I actually like Tom. Steven. I like Tom on the broadcast. I do. I like Tom on the broadcast. I think he does a good job. He's got a good baseball voice. And exactly, it's exactly how I feel, Ryan, which is why I don't care that you're a Heat fan, all right? Isn't that who you are? You're a Heat fan? Yeah, Jeff Bone, he's all over the map. Jeff Bone likes the Lakers, the Dodgers, the Eagles, and I don't even know who in basketball. Or no, you like the Lakers, right? I guess you don't have a hockey team. Lakers, Dodgers, and Eagles. Well, how about you like the Rams, Bone, right? Yeah. No, I'll take his Eagle fandom. Sports are Siglor, that's hilarious. Siglor, unfortunately, this seems to be part of my life here. Z, can we trade AJ in a first-round pick to the Browns for Myles Garrett? I do not think that will get it done. Big Mike, can you answer me why the hell they would want 30-year-old, $30 million wide receiver? They don't even have a quarterback. You get me? I'm born and raised in Florida. I like all the Florida teams except for football, but that makes sense, Ryan. Fair enough. The Florida football teams stink. Say you're an Eagle fan. I can respect that. Yeah, I like T-Mac. I'll still be your buddy if you're a Cowboys fan. I'll just know I'm a smarter friend. There you go, Roll. That's good. Roll, you wouldn't like my take on the Cowboys earlier. Z, can a man dream? I guess so, Big Mike. You know, sometimes I kill dreams. Roll Philly says, I already got that one. That was good. Eagles, Notre Dame, I think you're saying. Charlotte Hornets, Sixers, and Yankees. Yeah, I don't mind. I like, see, my thing is like, the Eagles are the only team, Eagles and the Sixers, but, you know, my Sixer fandom has changed with the new ownership and really in the last decade, but I still like them. My whole thing is, though, like, I'm always going to want to see a Philly team win. You know, I'm not gonna say I'm like the biggest fan of them. Like the Flyers. I grew up, I wasn't a Flyers fan. I didn't like the Flyers. I didn't like the orange jerseys. I hated how they never had a goaltender. I was a goalie growing up. So I'm like, screw you. I'm gonna root for the Devils. And I also like being the odd man out. You know, I've also always loved to be the villain. All right. I've always been that guy. You know, some people in life, they're just the villain. And you know, and I tend to be that at every phase of my life. So I kind of liked being, you know, the young guy at school who was like the only one who didn't root for the same team as everybody else. I've always loved that role. But I like to see the Philly teams win. Like the Flyers just in the playoffs. I wanted to see the Flyers win. I want to see the Phillies go far and win. Am I the biggest fans of those teams? No. But I do love to see them win. I like to see Philly win. I think I think Philly is filled with a lot of great people. I think there's a lot of shitty people too, unfortunately, in our city. But I think there's a lot of great people in our city too. Curtis, that's interesting. He says, I moved 4 states 4 times as a kid. I had no regional loyalty. The Eagles were the first team I started really watching. McNabb got me to start and Dawkins got me to stay. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, my parents are still in the house I grew up in. My parents bought their house a month before their wedding. My dad moved in the week before. My mom moved in on her wedding night, and they still are in the same home today. So I had I grew up in the same place my whole childhood. That's partly why I'm an Eagles fan living in Dallas. I'm a natural. Me too, Roll. Sometimes you just love to be that guy. Nah, Rich, that's not weird. That's not weird at all, Rich. I actually disagree with you completely. He says my wife doesn't root for teams; she roots for players. It's very weird to me. I subscribe to that probably more than the former. I'm a people person first. That's why I'm fine with the Knicks winning. I like Jalen Brunson. Like the way he plays. Like the grit. Like the story. I like everything about him. Villanova guy. Like I'm a people person first. Well before I'm a team. Dude, the teams don't give a shit about us, Rich. You know, the players don't either, but I'm a fan of people, you know? So I would have to disagree with you there, Rich. Now I'm not a jersey buyer, so that's different. He says, you know how many jerseys I have to buy? I don't buy jerseys. I don't buy jerseys. The only jerseys I've bought in the last couple years were for everybody on this chat. Yeah, I'm a fan of Jalen Hurts as a person for sure. Bro, I like the way he carries himself. I like Jalen. I think his football ability is not what some people think it is, but I'm a fan of Jalen Hurts. Yeah. In fact, that's probably, I mean, Ro, I've been a fan of Jalen Hurts. I've told this story before, and I don't need to justify it to anybody, but you know, I was a fan. When he transferred from Alabama, I lived in Houston at the time. I had just finished school. I was living in Houston with my brother, and I used to turn on college football on Saturday, and I would always watch Alabama, obviously. But I started watching Oklahoma, and my brother would be like, dude, why are you watching Oklahoma? And he was like, I was like, because I like Jalen Hurts. You know, I have a number 2 Eagles jersey that has the Jalen Hurts name on it. That's the last Eagles jersey I've owned was that one. I bought that. It was like, I don't know, on draft night, I think I bought it. Yeah, I lived in Houston Flex for 2.5 years. I do have some stories from that place, some funny stories and some stories that can never be told on air, but definitely some stories. I love Dominic Hasek. Love him, Jerry. Flexing. Don't ever make me say that on the air. All right. Yeah, Gallery is nice. Nice mall. I mean, I'm not like a big mall goer, but yeah, I know it. Players come and go for the most part. That's true, David, which is why obviously allegiance is the team. But I'm just saying in general, I like people's stories. You know, that's why I root for people in here. I get to know people in here, you know. I think I get to know people in here more than most. I don't know. I can't speak for every other YouTuber that you watch or you listen to, but I've always tried to build a relationship that's more than just you listening to me on a program with the people that listen to our shows. You know, I learned some about you guys, whatever you're willing to share. You know, some of you guys I talk to off the air all the time. My guy Tony, I talk to Tony all the time, and we talk about Corvettes. We talk about a bunch of different shit. You know. So I've always tried to do that because that's a fun part of life to me. You know, it's a fun part of life to me. Wow, that's incredible, Roll. Is that right? Fun fact, my dad got drafted to Buffalo, so he was a damn good goaltender and backed up Dominic Hasek in the preseason until he got cut for a DWI. Wow, that's an incredible story. Obviously, I'm sorry that happened to your pops, but your dad must have been a hell of a goaltender, dude. You're getting drafted. You're getting drafted to be a goaltender. You're a fucking good goalie. That's awesome, man. Great story. That's a big reason why I come here every day because you talk to us. That's good, Ryan. I appreciate it. I appreciate learning about you guys, and I like to think that you guys are my friends. You know, I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but I like to think that. You know, I like to think that I'm not one of those people that's got a lot of friends. You know, like my best friend in my life is my brother. That's the only friend that I need to text, communicate with, to hang out with, you know, to spend time with, to build a life with. That's my friend. My friend is my brother, my best friend. You guys are my friends. But I've never been a person that's been stimulated by, well, if I don't hang out with them once every 3 weeks, then they're not really my friend. You know, you know how many friends I got coming to my wedding? I got my best friend in the world from my childhood. That's Frankie. If Sig is in here, he knows Frankie. Frankie, I've been friends with Frankie since I was 6 years old. Same dude. We don't talk for 6 months. We text each other. It's like we haven't missed a beat. And then I got my best friend from high school and college. We went to high school and college together. That's all I need. That's all I need. I got my 2 best friends. I got my brother. I got my JAKIB chat. That's all I need. I don't need 48. Hey, Zander. Oh, I don't need it. Please. I understand some people are like that, but that's not me at all. Teach his own. Teach his own, though. I think of you as a friend too, Rich. Thank you, brother. All right. Senor, you give me a lot of shit, Senor. Senor has taken he's kind of become he has to detract anything Zander says. Even though he knows that my takes are fucking immaculate, all right, are pristine, are top of the totem pole when it comes to sports takes. You know, he wants to disagree because he's silly as boyfriend. That's all right, Senor. You know I love you. Senor, you know I love you. You know, Bird Gang, she says, I don't really have friends. My best friend of over 20 years changed, and we don't talk now. You know what? I'll tell you this, Bird Gang. My dad's been telling me this for a long time, and I used to have no idea what he meant. He used to say, Zander, in the end, they're all acquaintances. Pick a couple, and they're not. The rest, they're all acquaintances. And I'm sure as many of you listening have had your own experiences in life. You know, people will turn on you at inopportune times or for inopportune things or whatever the case may be. So I got that's nice. I got my kid in the gym. There you go, Michael. That's good life right there, brother. It's a good life. Ryan, thanks, dude. I actually appreciate that comment, especially from you, who does chirp. You tend to be sarcastic, Ryan. I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, 3. I got 2. You got 3. I got 2. I got 2 in my brother. You know, I don't need much more than that. All right, guys. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about, we got OTAs today. It's going to be cool to actually see some Eagles stuff back on the timeline, I'm excited about that. Sorry. Wow, Roll, this is fucking dope, dude. I did not know this. Z, he won the 1991 national championship with Northern Michigan against BU. Billy Pye, the goalie guy. It's what he does for a living. Dude, is that your father? I'm going to be looking your father up. Billy Pye Goaltending Academy. No way, dude. Is this your pops? Oh, dude, that's freaking awesome. I'm going to read about your pops today. That's awesome, dude. You get the link. Where'd you send it, Daz? Yeah, Tony, good picture with Corvette Conti. I love it. That's awesome, man. Grew up a rink rat. I love it. Cesspool. I'll go on there, Daz. I don't get any notifications from X. So if I ever don't answer somebody, that's why. I try and give people that reach out to me often my phone number. I got Flex's number, I got Tony's number, I got a couple guys' numbers. But Jerry, that's great stuff, dude. Brothers are important in life. Family, God, Eagles, and Jacob is the only friends I need. Yes, sir, Philly Don. Now we're talking, Philly Don. I love it. Kyle says, Kyle, you are sarcastic. That's very true. But all right, guys, I got to run. I'm going to get out of here. Good show today. Appreciate everybody being here per usual. All right. A lot of good comments, a lot of good commentary. Look, I do think in all seriousness, I think this is an exciting Eagles season just because of the level of unknown that's out there. Like, what does the offense going to look like? How is it going to be without A.J. Brown? What is Sean Mannion going to provide? Are they going to change as much as we think they're going to change? Will Jalen Hurts bounce back and get back to what we need him to be this year? Will Saquon Barkley bounce back? The offensive line, what's that look like? How good do Cooper and Quinion play coming off of an all-pro season? Does Jahad Campbell fill the role at linebacker? What kind of safety questions do we have? Is Jonathan Grenard as good as we think he is for $25 million large? I mean, there's a lot of burning questions. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. I mean, almost every area there's things to talk about. And I think that makes for obviously an exciting season, and that always exists to some extent, right? You never really know what a team's going to be, but I think there's more unknown for the Eagles this year as compared to previous years where we felt like, oh, we're going to be a good team. Not to say I don't think we're going to be a good team, But I do think there's more questions coming into this year that, more boom or bust potential, if you will. There's more potential that the team could fall more flat than they have in the last couple of years. Their floor has been like 11 wins, dude. Guys, think about that. Their floor. They had a crazy failure in 23, and I think what many people would probably view last year as a crazy failure, and they still won 11 ball games. It's like, guys, our floor is pretty high. So does that change? Does that fall out from under them this year? I don't know. We'll find out. But I love all you guys. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for being here. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I will catch you guys tomorrow on a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Thanks, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.